Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 3rd meeting of the Richmond Selectboard. This is our first regularly scheduled meeting for the month of September. I am wearing flannel and I'm freezing and the leaves are turning and it's getting dark. Happy fall.
If you wore a Hawaiian shirt, you'd be warm.
I would.
It's all what you wear.
Most of you don't know this. I just recently had a nasty bout with COVID and I'm recovering, but I'm not quite at 100%. I'm testing negative and I'm not shedding the virus, but I'm not operating on all 8 cylinders tonight. So bear with me because I've got a little foggy brain thing going on. Before we begin, would anybody care to make a public comment?
Want to do Aaron's first?
Yeah.
Can you read it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a comment from Erin Farr. She had to leave just before the meeting, but she submitted it via the chat, which is up in the room for those to see. There was a traffic study done by the farm, and she's for reference the Farr Farm on Heinsberg Road in the beginning of August. I would venture to guess that a study associated with the four-way stop at the THCB intersection. I requested in the public forum that the study be done during the school year because that is when the most traffic flows through there. And if they studied it in the summer, the data would not be accurate. I would like to request that the traffic study is redone during a normal school week.
Anybody else care to make a public comment? Okay. Moving on, Josh, board, any changes, additions, or deletions to tonight's agenda?
I have a suspicion that item G is why most people are here about the Southview water. There's large, okay, I would like to recommend that we move item G to the beginning because we have a very large crowd who are standing.
Okay. I
would like to request to reconsideration of that move. If I may, there are some people who are planning to attend who wouldn't know that the item was shuffled in the agenda deck.
Fair point.
That is a fair point.
So maybe not.
Yeah, maybe. If that's the case, then we should leave it where it is so we don't deny somebody a chance for participation.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Thank you, Connie.
We need to add bleacher seating though here on the
Yeah. Okay, moving right along.
There is some more seating up.
Going into the warrant agenda, we are now on section 3A. Josh, do you want to give us an update on the recent discoveries of Eastern Equine Encephalitis in Chittenden County?
Sure. So according to the Vermont Department of Health, there's been 47 groups of mosquitoes that have tested positive for EEE across 11 towns, compared with 14 groups across 3 towns that tested positive in 2023. In August of 2024, a human case of EEE was detected in Chittenden County, which is the first human case in Vermont since 2012. High-risk towns currently include Alburgh, Burlington, Colchester, Sudbury, and Swanton, although additional testing could increase the number of towns that are at high risk in the coming days and weeks. So the Vermont Department of Health has put out some information on their website about EEE and how to avoid being bitten by a mosquito.
There's 2 parents.
And Richmond is not currently on the list of a high-risk town, but wanted to put it out there as a public discussion or update to the board, just to kind of keep an eye on the Vermont Department of Health to see if anything more comes our way.
Bart?
I think the point of discussing this here is just our heads up to the general public. I'm not sure there's any actual action we should take, although some towns and other states have taken action like closing parks, etc. I will say, for those of you who have not had the misfortune of looking up at the CDC website on EEE, it is frankly scary in terms of morbidity, mortality, and long-lasting permanent disability to many people who get it. Long-standing neurological deficits. If I recall correctly, the fatality rate in humans is something like 30%.
And there's no effective treatment for it.
And of the survivors, it's like 75% long-lasting symptoms. So it's something to avoid.
So everything you would do to protect yourself against mosquitoes, wearing long clothing, using repellent, and hope for a hard frost.
Yeah. Josh and I wanted this on the agenda tonight just as an informational item. And I think Mother Nature is going to be our best friend and actually give us a hard frost fairly soon. So, okay. Josh, do you want to discuss the request by the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department to utilize volunteers green for salmon?
It looks like we might have a representative here.
Yeah.
So why don't you come on up and explain? Better than I would. I'll find them. I got you. Oh, she's muted.
All right,
Hello and welcome.
thank you. So what we are looking to do, Vermont,
Could you introduce yourself?
sure, Bernie, with Vermont Department of Fish and Wildlife, I'm a fisheries biologist. My name is Bernie Pienka. I work out of the Essex Junction office. So we have a collaborative project with Burlington Electric where there is a trap and truck program for Atlantic salmon. Salmon live in Lake Champlain for a year to 2 years, run up the Winooski River and get caught in a trap, and then we truck them upriver. We were using a location a little farther upriver, but it sounds like that parking area is going to be closed for a release point because of some of the flooding sediments in the parking area. So we were trying to find another location that could basically support the release of these fish. We sent a video. Lisa Mard shared a video of some of the stocking. That's a lot more fish. That's a typical stocking event. We're talking about 200 fish a season. Trap operation starts September 15th and goes through November, and typically with a peak more in October. So you'd be looking at trying to get vehicle access near the water edge 3 times a week, probably during the peak, maybe once a week in the sides of that to basically release the salmon. We'll note that some of the areas where we've identified salmon reds, the nests, have been actually in that same area of Winooski River outside the park.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any downside to this. I think it's a good program.
Exactly. I think it's a big deal that salmon are out there and, you want to release them here. Seems like a good omen.
We,
We
as
just
you
won't
said, we
tell
only need a
the mayor.
motion, so.
We won't tell the bear.
Yeah, I'm not sure that you need official motion on it, but it was a little bit outside of the normal park use request, so I wanted to bring it to the board to make
Mr.
sure there
Chairman, just for
weren't
the
any
heck of it.
objections.
I move to authorize Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department to utilize volunteers green for salmon releases into the Winooski River.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Adam. Absent any further discuss, oh,
Question.
go ahead.
Well, okay, Richmond Land Trust doesn't think it's so good.
No,
That was the drop off point,
Okay,
but
okay.
it can't be.
and I checked in with them if there was any issues with the release points over the last few years. They said there was no issues. The only reason they can't use it this year is due to the flood damage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no problems.
Thank you.
Okay, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Bart, aye.
Jay, aye.
David, I. Bernie, thank you for coming and
Yeah,
explaining this to us. It is a little unusual, but.
Glad I could give you the information. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Just one follow-up question. How many do you release?
All of them. So we did 212 last year. The run varies. Last year was our highest run in 30 years.
Wow.
At 212 salmon. So they're all basically released up there. We have some that will come back down, and then some that will stay up. And then salmon will actually spawn multiple times, so they will go back out. I have we put a yellow, it's a Floyd tag. It's a thin spaghetti tag in the back with numbering on it. I've had 2 recently that were caught at the trap, released upriver, and showed up in the lake down near Converse 6 months later. So
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you for saying.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next is item C, discussion of Richmond Recreational Soccer Management and consideration of transferring soccer funds held by the town to Mansfield United.
So we let them jump in. I'll just give a little bit of an overview and got some new information today, which is part of the reason for putting on the agenda and find some new information out. So as you all probably know from signing warrants over the last number of years, the funds for Richmond Recreational Soccer have always been managed through the town. There's a town website, or they're in the town bank account. They're in a separate reserve fund. We receive requests from the organization for expenses. We pay those expenses through here. I've never really understood exactly why. And then we got the request to transfer the funds because they want to have a bit of a different management style for recreational soccer. I talked with Linda. She said that there was concern of fraud 10 or 15 years ago in another part of the state. So they transferred the funds to a town account. So it seemed like a reasonable request now that they have a better management structure to transfer that to an independent organization and let them run it on their own. Fran Thomas commented in an email that I think she copied most of you on, that actually the history is a lot deeper than that. So this was a Richmond Recreation program back 30 years ago or so that started up as a soccer program for residents of Richmond. And I think the money was managed sort of separately. And then as concerns came up about like, how should that money be managed better, maybe the town attorney or the board advised that we're going to bring it in and manage it like a regular recreation fund. So that's sort of how it became absorbed into the town. My understanding is, and they can give some more information on the management history, but for the last number of years, there's been kind of like one person managing it. And now Danielle has come in with a couple of ideas and some volunteers to, I think, bring it up to the next level. And Mansfield United on a plan to do that and a request for the funds. When I talked to Fran, she wanted to make sure, I think this is a valid request, that the money that's transferred is earmarked to stay for this program and doesn't get absorbed into other programs. With that set up, I'll turn it over to Danielle and Emmett, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for having us tonight. Danielle Altenberg, mother of two little soccer players. So we've done Richmond soccer for 2 years, and like Josh said, one poor volunteer was managing all of it, and it's a lot to manage. So my husband and I recruited a couple of other sets of parents. So we have about 6 to 8 of us that just are, all our kids are in soccer, and we just really love it. We participated in the Mansfield United Club program in the past. And really just want to bring a little extra love to the soccer program. And Emmett with Mansfield United just brings a little more organization, a little less work for volunteers on the back end with the data and the information, so that the parents can coach and help recruit and just be a little bit more involved. So I put the proposal together with the help of a couple of other parents, and we just love soccer and want to see it thrive here in Richmond as part of the community.
I don't know how far back you want to go, but
Could you give your full first and last name?
Emmett Manning. Yep, I live in Underhill and I run the Mansfield Soccer Club. Originally, there were 2 clubs in the local area. You had the Browns River Soccer Club and Campbell's Hump Soccer Club. It was probably about 8 years back, Deb,
I think so, yeah.
that the 2 merged, just in terms of numbers, to facilitate the players moving up into Mount Mansfield and, you know, just syncing up a little bit earlier in their playing career. About 5 years back, the Mansfield Club took over what was a vacancy for the Underhill Jericho rec program and rolled it up under our programs. For the last 4 or 5 years, we've been helping the Richmond program actually do the registrations, collect their monies, and then disperse a check to the town at the end of that season, turn it going, minus what was their registration fee to get the kids registered with the state association, right about $10 per player. The impetus for us is just to make sure that in the whole soccer community, it's just cohesive. You know, if you get different programs doing different things, as they start to merge together, it can be a little bit just fractured in terms of stuff going on. So we're just looking to have everyone on the same page, have the program similar, and have things kind of rolling forward. For us right now, I would say maybe 55% of the kids in our club come from the Richmond and Bolton area as far as the players going on into the travel program. Somewhere maybe like the other half in the Underhill and Jericho residents. So as early as U9, when they would be maturing out of the rec program, they're going into that travel program for the spring, which offers a little bit in the spring, a little bit in the winter, and then again, a fall program going on. For us, it just makes sense for the kids to kind of have that stepping stone going right through and getting into, you know, the same program with knowledge of each other and what they've got to play, and having just the whole program be cohesive. For us, we'd be doing it in terms of bringing the program in regardless of what the funds are. That's not what we're here for. The money's there. We already did an investment of like $4,000 into what we think we need for goals to structure the program, similar to what we've got going on. Did a little backup uniform because we knew the registration might run a little bit late. So the kids that are jumping into the program late and hearing about what's going on, we'd be able to jump into the uniform and stuff. So for us, hopefully it's a move forward irregardless, either one way or the other. Do the funds help to offset some of the costs we incurred? Sure. But it's would be hard spent, pressed to say that the money's going to flow outside of the soccer community. That's what we're here for, to kind of keep the pricing structure low so it's attainable for anybody that wants to, whether you're on scholarship or, paying the minimum fee. And then you've got choices going on through to do travel in the spring or to skip the spring and just come back to us in the fall, so.
I would just observe the long-term trajectory here has been some consolidation. I think I first met you in 2008. I coached a Browns River team because there weren't enough girls on the Camel's Hump Soccer Club. Yeah. And sort of that was the first experience I had and joined from the more than one town at the club level. And then at the league level, at one point in Chittenden County, there's something like 7 soccer leagues. And then last I knew was down to like 2, it may be 1 now.
Well, for a long time, it was just the Vermont Soccer League.
Yeah.
And just this past season, they took that and broke it out into 2, but it was basically just a Division 1 and the other making a different league. So it's primarily one league. There's a couple of smaller leagues that try and develop come the fall time, but for the most part, it's just that one main league for the state.
So my real point is that this has been sort of the evolution of soccer in at least this part of the state, that there has been some integration across communities.
Part of it is just numbers of kids.
Yeah.
As that started to shrink, the goal is to keep more kids playing. And if you're trying to go ahead and get a roster size that works, having the ability to work with 32 kids as opposed to 16 enables you to make 3 teams as opposed to maybe 1 and having 6 or 7 drift off. So just having those numbers gives you more flexibility in terms of how you can approach getting more kids playing. And we really only could start to attain that by kind of combining numbers of kids that all feed back up into Mansfield.
Any further questions?
There's definitely somebody, I don't have any.
How much is this fund that you're talking about?
$17,343.
And how was this fund originally generated? Was it from Bolton, Huntington, Richmond? Is that where the funds came from?
So the rec program for Richmond, primarily Richmond players. I've done registration, I think, for them the last 4 seasons, and all told is somewhere between 3 to 4,500 or so in a check that our club has gone ahead to turn over to the Richmond town for the program. That's without any kind of incurred expenses, whether they've got uniforms out of that or whatever. So, it could be that 10 of that 17 has come from the last 3 or 4 years of actually doing that program, going through and building up. The rest, I have no way of knowing whether it accrued $500 each season or $1,000 or, $80. Really have no idea.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I do have a thought. In the memo, it's noted that our town finance director, Connie Bona, does not have an issue with this transfer. And I call that out because I'm on the July 4th committee and our money is managed by the town. So when we do a coin drop, when we do a fundraiser, there's actually a lot of legal stuff you have to do to make it all dot your I's and cross your T's, and Connie has enough to do without having to do a lot of that. So I think it makes sense there's no really good reason for us to be managing it, and it is a lot less administrative overhead if we transfer it to somebody who has the time and inclination. It would make doing fundraisers and so forth easier, I would assume.
Denise?
Denise Barnard, I believe the fund has been on the town books for many, many, many years. And when Connie presented, I think it was in January or maybe even December, after the auditors had done their report, remember the auditors requested that we get rid of some of these unallocated funds or allocated funds that are on the books. But I guess as a longtime Richmond resident, and I would ask that the fund be used for Richmond and Bolton children. I believe Huntington has its own independent program and then has always had their independent program. So I guess I would ask that the funds be used for Richmond and Bolton children or our fields if possible. Since, you know, the people before the group has what built the fund up. And I
We
don't
do
know if
have
that's a possibility.
We do have a few Huntington families, myself included, that
Okay.
do play in Richmond because their kids go to Richmond Elementary. So it seems like it's mostly been, and I don't know if you can speak to the registration for this year,
You know,
but mostly.
for us as the club to try and manage 2 accounts and be selective in terms of where you go with it, I would rather say, take the dollars, maybe less than necessary thing, and invest it into Volunteers Green. You know, that was a suggestion I made from the start, was you've obviously had some stuff going on from the flooding that you've got incurred expenses trying to take care of the green and bring it back up, whether more needs to be done. The club is fine with just taking those dollars and put it towards the venue. We've got no issue with that at all. For us, it's a matter of getting the kids into a program that's cohesive. What happens with the 17 grand? It was suggested that we take it. We're here just telling you about us, but we're fine with it to go completely back to volunteers. We have no issue with that.
But I really only made that suggestion figuring it would go back to Richmond Rec Soccer specifically for expenses for Richmond Rec Soccer, because that's what it's for. But I think that's a lot cleaner solution. If there's a few expenses that are specifically for Richmond Rec Soccer, the board can approve it. And then if you guys want to donate the rest back to Volunteers Green, I think we can easily do that. And then we don't have to have an agreement in place.
I think it
as far as
avoids that
separate.
thing in
Yeah.
terms of where the funds came from,
Transparent.
where it needs to go to.
Transparent.
We're fine with having it go that way.
You got- Sorry.
I just want to say thank you for what you're doing and what you've done, and that, I didn't mean to ask the question of how much was it, because I mean, we're talking a couple $1,000s, it's a lot different than the 17, so I really appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for potentially donating it back so the fields can be well maintained and repaired with flooding, and hopefully need goals, and that's
I mean,
toward that, or whatever you guys need, but I want to just thank you all for what you're doing.
for the club, it's not always the same in all clubs where the town supports them with field use. A lot of teams and clubs need to go ahead and do a stipend for field use. So for us, just to have access to the fields for the club to play, whether it's rec or travel, we're happy to kind of support and keep the venue going.
You know, I was thinking, well, first, 2 things. My memory of when Vermont Soccer League joined with Champlain, they gave them like $60,000. It dissolved and the money went over. So there is some precedent for that, for a mission-driven organization. But then the other question is just for context, you know, if we put the 17,000 in context to what the current approximate balance or annual expenditures are, if you have a sense for scale, so that people can see the scope or scale.
Yeah, we tried to keep the pricing for the program in line with what's been done for the last several years, which I think was a $55 registration fee. It's broken out a little bit different because we have the families do the uniform direct instead of being a warehouse for uniforms. So it's like $25 for the uniform shirt and $30 for the program fee. Out of that program fee, we still register all the players, so it's a $20 net that comes back to the club to cover expenses we've got in terms of just any gear or doing the lining for the field and that kind of stuff there. So it's probably a small amount when you weigh it out that comes back into the club. If you're breaking it into just Richmond players versus everybody, but you know, it's a little bit that comes in over the top from, you know, what the.
Linda on Zoom?
Hi, I've been taking care of the bookkeeping for that account since 2011, and all the money that's come in has been registration fees. It's not coming from the town or anything, it's just registration fees that parents have paid for their kids to play.
Thank you,
And
Linda.
if anybody wants to see my 2 notebooks of it, I'd be glad to show you.
Thank you, Linda. Adam?
Yeah, I coached last year, so thank you for doing this. I don't want to coach my own play again. It's great coaching, right? Okay, good. Yeah, we paid the registration fee. I didn't know any of it was going to get saved in an account. That's great that some of it there was excess. I imagine everyone that's paid into these fees over the last 13 years didn't think that. So hard, I know myself. As someone who paid into it, I have no problem with just going to the club and letting them use it however they see fit. Got a great mission.
Excuse me, Adam, can you put the microphone between you and Lisa
Oh,
so
yeah.
we can hear you? Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to transfer the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fran, go ahead.
Okay, Fran Thomas, Recreation Committee Chair for 13 years. We started the soccer program way back when, and I do believe that the 17,000 should be used only for Richmond soccer players. I have no trouble with transferring the organization over. I understand the difficulty on getting volunteers to run programs and coach. I know at times it's been, okay, who's gonna take the lead this year? But the funds myself should only be used to help Richmond soccer on the field, whatever. And that seemed to be agreeable with the United Club, and that's where I feel that we should go. You know, if we need new goals and field maintenance, that's what we should do, but it should be Richmond only. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the $17,343 held by the town of Richmond for the Richmond Recreational Soccer Program be transferred to Mansfield United for continued use by the Richmond Recreational Soccer Program.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second?
This is Jay, I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Just out of curiosity, I know Emmett had said that he would prefer that we just don't transfer it if we're gonna hamstring the
Yeah, I mean,
funds.
for us, I don't want to manage
Yeah.
a second account for Richmond only players. That means me segregating out travel club and so these underfield guys can partake in this new net we have, but it's become a quagmire. I would prefer that we just did one expense for the nets for the new program here. Any expenses going further, we would do out of registration fees the same way you've done over the years. I would prefer just to submit that invoice for the 4,000 and have you take the rest and just disperse it into maintenance of volunteers if that's what the desired motion is for it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Brendan Pilkins. I was just gonna stipulate that this is about really small dollar amounts for things that are really supporting our communities. And we're talking about kids playing football here. We need to have enough of them so that they have a good time. And I think it's silly if we're gonna quibble over amounts like that to support something so positive.
Bart?
Just to note that football means soccer.
It's not.
Or
In the rest of the world.
Was it Manchester United?
So what are we gonna do?
Emmett, do you have any kids on scholarship? I mean, would this be
Anyone that
helpful
requests it,
for that
we
group?
put it through, no matter which town they're from.
Fran, go ahead. You're muted, Fran.
I would say that $17,000 is not just a little bit of money, particularly for all the residents of Richmond who saw their tax rates go way up. And there's definitely work to be done on Volunteers Green. And so I don't think that the funds should be used for Volunteers Green. And if that seems to be agreeable with Mansfield United, I don't see why we just can't go that way. Pay the invoice that where the expenses that they've already occurred. There ought to be a way to use the funds, to transfer the funds to, say, the rec committee to be used for maintenance of Volunteers Green. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Brendan? Oh, you switched hands on me.
Caitlin Pilkins. As a mom who's just recently signed up for soccer, very supportive of the program and excited for my kid to play. I think that if we're gonna define which towns of kids that's very silly. We should not be doing that. It's a program, it supports multiple towns, as does our school system. And it needs to be money that goes towards the program and decided upon by the program itself. If some of that money can't be used by the program for whatever expenses you all need in order to support the program, then we can have that donate back to the town at your discretion. However, if there are things that need to be paid for to support the program itself, it should be primary for any kid, not a separate Richmond town account. It should not be differentiated by that. Additionally, as a parent who's just signed up and completely screwed up the order of the jersey, it would be great if there was the availability for you all to purchase jerseys and people to have those distributed. And if you had the money to do so, I'm sure there's other things that you would do as well. So,
Emmett?
You know, for us, the club is fine to work with the registration fees. This dollar amount in no way makes or breaks us being able to take on the Richmond program. To alleviate the cost we just did to do the new nets would be great. But for me, it's more important to have 100% buy-in, that anyone involved, whether it be a town person or someone in the program or here, that everyone's behind it and good with how the whole thing unfolds. So if it's a matter of a case of taking the dollars, investing into fields that we use, we're 100% on board with that. If there's any objection to it coming to us, I mean, we would go ahead ourselves and put money back into, we've done it to Mills in terms of investing to that field. So it's better for our players to go ahead and do. So it's more important for us not to look like we're this some outside entity coming in to take money from the town. We'd rather be, you know what? Everyone's 100% on board. And if it means just paying out the one invoice and the rest of the money being in volunteers, I'd much prefer that.
So what's the will of the board? We have a motion on the table. We could withdraw that motion. We could do something else. We could vote the motion.
I have a thought. You know, first I'd say that Browns River was very welcoming to the kids who did not have enough players for a Camel's Hump team at U12 at the time. So the history that my personal experience with them, it goes to being inclusive and welcoming from another town into that town's or that region's club or program, for what it's worth. So my heart kind of goes in that direction, but looking for a compromise. What if we put this fund into sort of a dedicated, I'm not going to use the term reserved, but a dedicated fund for soccer infrastructure expenses and improvements at Volunteer Green, which sort of seems like the sweet spot of something that meets the needs of the club and meets the needs of the folks who have expressed concerns today about Richmond money somehow staying in Richmond.
Thoughts?
I have no problem with doing it that way.
Seems reasonable.
Gonna manage it.
And then, Bart, I guess at that point, no more money goes in.
Right.
We pay the net invoice, and then if there's a program that comes up for field improvement, great. Or if they say, hey, we could use $2,000 for uniforms for Richmond, they can submit that, we can pay that. It allows
That's
for
what I'm
future
thinking.
expenses.
And then draw the
You
thing
tell
out
us
zero,
what to
get rid
spend
of
it on,
Yeah.
and we'll pay the invoices associated with Richmond infrastructure.
So I guess to make it clean, I'd need the motion to be withdrawn
Yes.
and then a new motion made.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you, Lisa. There's the withdrawal of a second.
Who seconded?
I think Adam did.
Jay did, I think.
I withdraw the second.
Okay. Ready for a new motion?
So
You sound
move
like
to
an-
transfer the funds or to keep the funds in a dedicated fund for soccer and soccer infrastructure improvements and expenses for the Volunteer Green equipment and or the club expenses associated with playing soccer.
This is jail second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Bart, aye.
And David, aye.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Josh, are you ready for an update on flood recovery?
Sure. So the big news that's happened since the last meeting is FEMA finally made an actual disaster declaration for several counties in Vermont, Chittenden County being one of those. That includes public assistance and individual assistance. So the public assistance is for the municipality. So that's paying back for expenses related to municipal repairs, roads, water, sewer infrastructure, the like. We've already put in our application for that and gone to the informational meeting. So we're proceeding with that. Individual assistance is for private business, private homeowners, private property owners who are seeking additional funding. So we put some information on the website about that. There's also an 800 number, 1-800-621-3362. Individuals can call to get some more information on assistance that could be offered through FEMA for their specific losses. We've also updated the website with information from the Small Business Association, which actually does do disaster recovery funds for homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofits, even beyond FEMA. So an additional funding source potentially for individuals with personal property loss. That information again is on our website. On the municipal recovery side, contractors are wrapping up their work on the roads. Highway staff is using the next several weeks to finish up the work before winter, putting finishing touches on before we get into winter. The Emergency Watershed Program, which is the program that runs through the town to help private property owners with streams that could be potentially harming private property in the next flood. We've got about 30 sites in Richmond, and there'll be a site visit on September 10th and 11th. Administrative Assistant Lynn Caroleo has reached out to everybody who's submitted a request to be visited to make sure we have proper information for each site, and she'll be leading that site visit on September 10th and 11th with the Emergency Watershed Program. I think those are sort of the big updates right now.
Questions, comments, thoughts?
I just have a quick question. Has the town of Richmond applied for any of the under FEMA?
Could you identify yourself?
I'm sorry, I'm Brian Evans. Has the town of Richmond applied or part of the hazard mitigation grant program?
Yeah,
Do we have a plan?
Yep, we applied for several sites in highway where there are culverts that could be outsized to larger culverts or bridges. We've applied for some water and sewer infrastructure as well. And I think we also did one for this building for some flood mitigation. That was a pre-application deadline of last week, and now we have to work on the final application over the next few weeks. But yes, we've done that. And actually, since you bring that up, we also have 21 homes that are interested in the elevation or buyout program, which we spoke about. I think it's 21. We spoke about that 2 weeks ago. And I bring it up because it's similar hazard mitigation program. And we're continuing to work with homeowners on their next stages of the application. It can be a bit complicated talking to VEM to understand the next step. So Lynn's working hard there to kind of provide clear guidance to all the homeowners. And she is working on a map so we can put out a map to the board. Hopefully by next meeting, can have an understanding of where the properties are located that are looking at buyouts and elevations, and some are looking at both.
Thank you. Anything else? Moving on. Okay. Consideration of changing the October 1st, 2024 deadline given to the Volunteers Green and Browns Court Project Committee for recommendations for installations at Volunteers Green.
Hello again.
Welcome. So we've got less than a month.
Denise Barnard from the Volunteers Green and Browns Court Project. My co-chair, Ken Brzezinski, with me. If you remember, on December 18th, you approved $6,500 for a structural engineer to look at the band shell and to give us a proposal about what needed to be done to make sure that it was safe. That has expired. We spent all our energies on All Around Church and then Browns Court, and that quote that we received from the structural engineers expired. So I guess we're here. One of the reasons we're here is asking you to approve that $6,500 again, because the original quote with the structural engineer expired.
Can they just refresh it? I mean, it's the same.
Right, but
Same
you approved it on December 18th. I believe you need to approve it again.
I think, I don't know that they do. I think that the board approved the expenditure,
contractor wants us
but
to
the
do it.
contract, you just need to refresh it with the contractor. And if it goes over that 6,500, you probably need to ask for additional funds.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I should have, when I caught you outside the other day, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah. Right. Just a point of clarification. I just want to make sure and let you guys, be updated and let you know. The second reason that we're here tonight is when this all started, we had a deadline of October 1st to have everything signed, sealed, and done. But since then, through Katie Buckley, League of Cities and Towns, it's my understanding on the town of Richmond that deadline has been extended for the ARPA funding. And we're just here to go on record to make sure that you are all on board with that and that the extension is granted. Just cleaning up our paperwork.
Did you have an idea of what the new deadline should be?
Well, the deadline really depends on the planning commission being able to do their part. And so they were under the impression of this kind of speeding up of the process for us and have now been told, no, you don't need to because of the way this reserve funding has changed. I don't know all the, to leave it vague on that. And so they've been kind of given the brakes a little bit to not be so abrupt in their decisions and their wording and things like that. And so we sort of are hinged on what they're doing. So that's what's kind of.
But they are working on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've had some good interactions with the planning commission. But now we're starting to move full forward ahead on Volunteers Green to get that back.
Jay?
So I'm gonna go ahead and move the specific motion and then we can continue to discuss if I get a second. I move to remove the October 1st, 2024 deadline for recommendations on installations in Volunteers Green and set a new deadline once zoning amendments related to Volunteers Green have been approved.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
Okay, discussion, Kara?
Yeah, Carol Labonte. I've been with this since the very beginning of the ARPA stuff. So I really want to push the select board. You had a joint meeting with the planning commission to talk directly about Volunteers Green. And that's where the wording and the language came from, that language was supposed to be being drafted. I'm not asking for the planning commission to rush something, but that was during early parts of the summer, I believe. It's been a while. So I think we shouldn't let bureaucracy weigh this down. And then we should keep the heat going here, because every time it floods, if we're going to move that playground and put a new playground in, we're repairing and paying money out to put the bark back and to put all of that stuff back, and then it's shut down for a period of time. So if we can really, I really think you should extend this for this committee because they're tied up with waiting on the planning commission, but I really wish that you would express to the planning commission to not set this aside and that this is a priority to move forward with, because then this committee can do their work and then it can go out to RFP for hopefully work to be done in the spring. So I really don't want this to get delayed another 6 months.
Adam?
Yeah, I just want to point out, I don't think anyone from the select board directed the planning commission to go slower or take your time with this. I understand why, because we have found a way to offset funds and eliminate the deadline, but I think that we were all hopeful. Yeah, I think we're all hopeful that the work would be completed next spring or summer. So I think that that's the bottleneck right now.
I think the confusion though that I've heard in public before is that now that the money is set aside and it doesn't have to be spent by December 31st, there's no priority for this.
Yeah, I know. I think my point was that after that meeting, none of us have said that that priority doesn't exist just because the date changed. So I think that that's a development.
Nothing's changed.
So the planning commission came to that conclusion themselves.
So if you can just express to them, that would be great. That's my only request. Thank you.
That's.
Keith on Zoom?
We don't steer the planning commission. Okay.
Yes, you actually can give them a mission or a task to accomplish, and you had a joint meeting for that purpose. So yes, you do.
However,
I think
at
Keith
the end, they decide.
I think Keith got some context to the planning commission process.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm basically, 40 feet from you right now, but we are moving forward with it. It's the next step after the VRNs, and we've made a lot of good progress recently, and I would expect this to be easily, and I should not say this, but it should be landing with the select board after it gets vetted, I'd say inside a month to 6 weeks. That's our hope.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you, Keith.
You're Bard.
Yes, I am. So Keith, if we changed October 1st to November 1st, 30 days later?
I think that's too tight for the.
Yeah, we'll have-
committee.
Yeah,
I
so
think they
so that's what he's saying. So what are you saying? What
We then
what do you
need to be able to
propose?
take that, whatever those parameters are from the select board, to then get prices on what, the playground we pretty much have,
Design and
but
process.
Right.
structures and things.
So,
And that takes them some
Give me a
time.
date.
so you would need 90 days or.
They need to see the zoning.
Right.
And
But
then they'll
motion on
have
the floor.
2 months
Exactly.
after the zoning. to
I
get-
think
Motion
that your
doesn't set a date,
safest
it
is
sets
to
the
that it's
criteria.
done We will
Right.
continue to try and get people lined up so that we know then how long they need.
So if they're November first, you had it in hand November first, how long do you need?
Well, their
February
contracts.
You know, when the zoning comes back, we can always say, okay, now the deadline is. I don't think we need to second guess that tonight. I
Okay,
think the motion on the floor, I mean, just my 2 cents is, let's wait for the zoning, and as soon as we get the zoning, let's set a deadline.
Because that'll be on your select board agenda anyway.
Mhm.
You just have the second item be us reestablishing
Mhm.
how long we need. That sounds fair.
So did we want to clarify the substitution for a criteria versus a date in the motion just for?
I think the motion is fine the way it is.
Okay, did you want to reread the motion for
The second
clarity?
one.
Yeah, the motion is, I move to remove the October 1st, 2024 deadline for recommendation on installations in Volunteers Green and set a new deadline once zoning amendments related to Volunteers Green have been approved.
Okay, and that has been seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, the only further discussion is that would, if you might be inclined, if you're on the planning commission, to read that and go, hey, whenever. So perhaps parenthetically, we should say we still want it by, call it November 1st. Is that fair, Keith?
I don't think we want to be held to a date, to be honest with you. I mean, it still has to go through legal. I don't know what they're going to be coming back with. At this point, I would prefer Jay's, but I'm not the planning commission, so I don't speak for them.
November 1st, 2025?
That works.
I'm just recognizing we were in this David, we were in this tight timeline, get it done. And my concern is now it will just
We do not.
to consume the time available, which.
Well,
I think the Three Parks Committee will make sure that.
Yeah.
And moreover, if we get a sense on the select board,
And we will work as expeditiously as possible to get this through legal. Honestly, we're really close right now.
but just one other thing, the select board is not, this is not our last chance to weigh in on this. If in 2 meetings we're like crickets, we can then, take whatever action we see appropriate for that time. This is just for right now, say, until the zoning is done, let's just be realistic.
Come back anytime.
We love coming here.
I just had one more comment, not about these motions, but about something I read in the memo about the planning commission explored the option of moving structures and adding structures or just moving existing structures. And it was my understanding based on that meeting that we were gonna pursue the option of adding new structures. And I just want to make sure that you guys are on board with that and that's not, I don't know why that changed. That was,
I believe our understanding is that additional structures cannot be added.
Unless
That-
other ones are deleted.
Right, so if we remove
based on the
bathroom,
proposal that they're proposing, and
Yeah.
we had talked about trying to eliminate that barrier. So I was curious why we're not trying to eliminate that anymore.
Keith might be able to.
Keith, I can talk to you,
I
this is
summarized it
separate.
really quick, so he probably has
Yeah,
more context.
That's just separate. I'm sure maybe there's a legal reason or whatever, but I can talk to you later, Keith, because it's not
Okay.
really relevant.
That sounds good.
Okay, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Bard, aye.
Jay, aye.
And David, I. And thank you for
Yeah.
coming.
Do you want a 2-second update?
We would love it. 2 seconds.
The round church is 98% complete. The benches have come in.
Oh, nice.
The handicap picnic table has come in that matched the aesthetics of the old round church. The only thing that we're waiting on right now is the concrete slab underneath to be poured.
Right.
Brown's Court is, and you might be able to update that better.
You probably know more than I.
The
You and Duncan.
request for proposals have gone out. The deadline, I don't have the deadline on top of my,
It's in a few weeks.
couple, 2 weeks,
I think-
less than 2 weeks. So our request for proposal on the pickleball court, we're gonna do that first, so we don't have to go over the parking lot while that's being installed, but everything is going well.
Thank you.
Yay.
Yay, it's so exciting.
Thanks to Duncan for running a lot of that process, because I wasn't getting too far. So Duncan has been moving the darkness forward.
Thank you so much.
And we love you coming to us and saying, everything's going great.
Great.
Next is consideration of adding a microphone to the select board meeting room, which is this room, the 3rd floor conference room.
Want me to speak about?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
So I'm going to momentarily take one hat off and put another one on. I am president of the board of Mount Mansfield Community Television, and MMCTV does get some funding from the town for their operations, and in return, MMCTV provides a very valuable service in making our meetings available to people who can't be here in person and also to watch the stream videos later. There's a very, reciprocal relationship there. The one thing that is impacting and making that not work as well as it could is that this whole corner of the room over there, there's no hanging microphone over it. So the people who are sitting over here in this corner are being picked up at best by the microphones up here on the table. And very often, when we listen to the transcript later to make the minutes, or for whatever reason, the things people have said are inaudible. I mean, literally, they're just blah, 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 blah. So the request in this item is to allocate up to $2,000 from the Town Center and Library Reserve Fund to purchase a microphone. And it would be, Angeliki, who is head of MMCTV and operations, has been doing a lot of shopping around. The ones that she's looking at are ones that they're using in the Jericho Town Center that have worked very well for picking up sounds and eliminating a lot of the excess noise. So I don't think it's even going to come to $2,000, but that would be our upper limit.
Jay, would a wireless mic be a better investment?
I don't think it would be, in that it can have interference from various sources, but I'm not an expert. I know that the one she's recommending is not wireless.
Can I guess it's not a second one like that?
Correct. It would not be a second one like that. That's not a terrible microphone, but when we turn the gain up on that one to make sure it comes out well, the sound from the rest of the mics then gets a little weird. In a perfect world, I think we would get two new ones. One new one to replace that, but that's not the request right now. Right now, the request is just to get one for that corner.
Angeliki has her hand up.
Oh, and Angeliki is with us, so I'm going to shut up and let you talk.
Go ahead, Angeliki.
Hi,
You're muted.
it was
There.
actually like the perfect test case as there were so many people gathered on that side of the room. I don't know if they're still there. But yeah, we installed something like that for Jericho in a similarly sized meeting room. It's a ceiling mic array, which has a whole bunch of mics inside it and kind of listens for where there's noise. And just in speaking to Josh and Jay a little, we would be adding to the stuff that's in the room that was installed during the pandemic. It's the first kind of device like that would be installed. So it would be added to the mics that are there. So it would just be catching the audience, let's say, area of the room. So it would be in addition to the mics you have on the table and can be sort of separately controlled.
All right.
I'm still a little confused. Like, how is it? It's not replacing the other one hanging from the ceiling, or it is replacing the one hanging from the ceiling?
I think the one hanging would probably stay or kind of move around a bit, but it's like a much more robust device that gets, like in Jericho, we can hear people walking in the front door of the town hall when they come in. So it just picks up a lot more.
So would it be fair to say that this new microphone with all the technology would make that whole audience side of the room come clear better, even if we did take down the existing dangling one? We're not taking down the dangling one, but that a new one could handle that side of the room kind of almost on its own. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it would just add to that side of the room, which, I mean, the whole room you're in my mind, is a little bit temporary. And we've been just kind of adding things as we go. And in the place of a state-of-the-art audiovisual setting, it would just kind of help us hear everybody when they're in the back of the room, and that room is not closed off. So the voices do tend to get lost if people are standing in the back.
You know, I'm just still a little concerned. I think it was 25 years ago at the Vermont Center for Independent Living. I was in the first conference room in my experience where it was fully mic'd. And the entire room, you didn't see it, but everything was mic'd. It picked up everybody everywhere. And it seems to me that might be the gold standard that we shoot for in a future state town center meeting room. And my only thought is, if in the near term it's temporary, I'm guessing that hanging mic is about $100. I don't, it seems to me that if we're gonna spend thousands of dollars, why wouldn't we be dealing with the whole room in terms of
Well,
how that works?
I validate what you're saying, but my sense from what Angeliki and I have talked about is that the new mic she's recommending would handle pretty much the whole side of the room. It's just there's no reason to throw that one out. But if it disappeared tomorrow, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And the microphone is not going to be, Angeliki, if we do move to another room, this new microphone that you're recommending is something we could move, correct? It would not have to, it would not be perpetually wired to the ceiling.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to move it. It's connected through Ethernet and it's just kind of installed through this metal thing that hangs down from the ceiling tiles. The metal supports between the tiles. So it can move wherever your system moves.
And that hanging microphone isn't even that, it doesn't pick up that side of the room that well anyway, does it?
No.
So, I mean, a microphone for the entire audience might be, you know, I think a second of the hanging microphones really wouldn't accomplish the goal. Doesn't sound like.
Hi, my name is. Could you come up? Because we're not going to hear you.
Ironically.
Tom Walters, retired audio engineer.
Oh, welcome.
This microphone is a lavalier mic. It's designed to be mounted on someone's collar. So it's not really the right mic for that job. The ceiling mic that they're talking about is really quite unique in that it probably has 6 to 8 microphones that are highly directional. And so what happens is, and you know, somebody I think earlier mentions like room noise and shuffling and that kind of thing. So it's a smart mic in a sense. And what it'll do is like if somebody over here is talking, it'll turn off the mics that are over here. And then, you know, when you folks speak, it'll turn those back on. It's not the kind of mic you would want to move around. You would just put it up here and it'll do its thing. It's probably a really good investment.
And it probably renders that
obsolete.
The reason I got up really is because if you continue to use that with that microphone, that's going to cancel out what this guy is trying to do.
Good point.
Thank you. Garrett?
I just want to, we gave MMCTV $10,000, I think, last year to go toward, I think, the mics that are on the table. Makes sense that we're going to get a mic that, you know, could break here and cover both sides of the audience so you don't have that problem anymore. And we've already made the investment once. This is just adding to the last piece. I think we did all those. Now it's time to do this one.
I like that explanation.
Yeah, I've most of these meetings I've attended in person. The few I've watched afterwards or attended remotely, it becomes very obvious very quickly how limited the mic functionality is for the audience. So seems like a good investment.
So thank you very much, Mr. Audio Engineer.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yep.
Just to, before we make the motion, I know it's suggested we take the money out of the town center and library reserve fund. That seems like a reasonable place to take it for me, but is there any other options where?
Unallocated.
Either one. You could do either one. We could take it out of the town center maintenance fund, which would essentially spend that budget line, but if we go over, then it's unassigned. Or if we come out of the town center fund, either, whatever the board's pleasure.
If it works the way it sounds like it's gonna work, it's gonna be in the new town center or improved or whatever.
I mean, either way, it's $2,000. It's not gonna make or break either account. So whatever the pleasure of the board is.
I move to use up to $2,000 from the town center and library reserve fund to, I'm going to change it a little bit, to invest in a microphone for the select board meeting room.
There you go. Thank you, Adam. Do we have a second?
Is Bart, I'll second that.
So the motion is to move to use up to $2,000 from the town center and library reserve fund to invest in a microphone for the, and I'm going to call it the town center meeting room because it's not just the select board.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote.
Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Art, aye.
Jay abstain.
David, aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Item G.
Item G, which I am understanding is the reason most of you are here tonight. Item G is.
And there are, just mentioning, there are some chairs in the front for anybody standing with us. We've got at least 2 seats up here.
You can't be heard when you're sitting over there talking, but.
Josh, did you want to lead this discussion off?
Sure, I'll give a brief history of it. So this is the general permit 39050 for the Southview subdivision. This is a state permit that applies to all sites that have 3 acres or more of impervious surface. And this applies to subdivisions. So I think when people think of 3 acres, you might think of like a Walmart or a Home Depot that has 3 acres that you can see of impervious.
So impervious means paved.
Paved or
Roof,
roof.
building,
Yes. Anywhere where like the ground has been disturbed where you can't have natural water seeping in. But this permit applies to subdivisions as well. So even a subdivision like Southview that's been, I'm not sure how old it is, 30, 40 years old, they're asking that the subdivision become in compliance with the full new modern 3 acre stormwater rule. Because all told, between the roads in there and private property impervious surface, it totals up to more than 3 acres. For years, the town has renewed the stormwater permit through the state and conducted an inspection of the Southview site as well as a few others. And then this would change that from the annual sort of update and inspection to the 3 acre rule. I was in the process of working with an engineer to begin to put phase 1 of this coming into compliance with the rule last summer. We started to discuss how this was a little bit different than the town applying for and paying for the permit annually. This is a much larger cost, and it typically is divided up amongst the owners of property within the subdivision based on their impervious surface. So the town in this case owns about 1/3 of it with the roads, and then the other 2/3 is split up between 123 property owners that have various impervious for driveways and houses and such. At that point, we came to the select board to discuss what our next steps would be because there's no homeowners association in Southview. So typically, we actually have one moving forward with Greystone right now. There's a homeowners association in Greystone. They're under 3 acre permit rule, but because they have a homeowners association, they've actually been fairly proactive in getting an engineer and getting the permitting in, and the town is a co-permittee with them on that. But there's a homeowners association that then can divide up the expenses among the homeowners. That was not the case and is not the case in Southview. We discussed this with the attorney last year about this time. And the select board discussed it in open session in September of last year as well, and made the decision to not move forward with the notice of intent or any further process on the 3 acre rule because there was no homeowners association with which to split the costs. So we notified the state of that decision in September, and then haven't really heard. Then they just recently sent out a letter to all residents in Southview regarding the 3 acre rule, and we're currently in non-compliance. That includes the town for its portion of the impervious as well as all 123 homeowners. I'll turn it over to Barb.
Well, when the copy of the letter, which item in our attachments? 3G,
yeah.
letter from the state to Southview residents. Did we get a letter like that ourselves?
We got one in March after, I think it was in March, after we withdrew the notice of intent. At which point I forwarded it to our attorney, but I knew that we'd already decided that we weren't taking any action on this. So there did not seem to be any more action to take.
So I'll just say, if I were a resident receiving this letter, well, I'll back up. As somebody who worked in state government for over 30 years, I find this really striking. If you haven't read it, you should read it. The first paragraph basically says, I haven't told you anything about this before, but now I'm telling you that you're too late in doing the thing I didn't tell you to do. That's my executive summary. of this letter. I'm finding it really disappointing. And then I go to the bottom where you typically see the CC to the town. That is conspicuously absent. So this was sent to residents, apparently individually, of Southview. How did we come to be aware of the existence of this letter?
No, it was forwarded by residents to the town office.
So for a state program, the stormwater program in the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, to not communicate among the interested parties at the same time, and then to do so in a way that is somewhat confrontive, I would think that's how you would read it if you were a resident of the Southview, I find disturbing. And I would say there's probably blame on the town. When we talked about this a long time ago, a year ago, I'm thinking, oh, state government, it's their deal. They're going to take care of this and communicate with people. I frankly have not thought about it in many months until seeing this letter. And then I have some other comments that today, I called folks at the Regional Planning Commission about what they see in other towns, other subdivisions or neighborhoods that don't have homeowners association, and the complexity of where you have stuff in the town right of way and not in the town right of way. So I have some feedback about what other cities at least have done in that regard. But I'll just say, I'm sure people are upset having received this and read it, and it is a somewhat confrontive in tone. And especially for a letter that is the first that people have heard about any of this, saying it's already too late, or you should have done something by now.
And so a year ago, the residents of Southview did not get a letter, and if they didn't attend our meeting, they just labored in darkness.
Correct.
And the state just went off in the
Tra-la-la.
corner and bided its time, apparently.
Were these most recent letters sent certified or return receipt? Or did they do anything to make sure they
Regular
got
mail.
there?
Regular mail.
So people who, if they got lost in the, maybe our copy is lost in the mail.
Our understanding is, sorry, Sarah Heim, I'm a resident of Southview. Our understanding is also that, so I've been in communication with some staff at the Department of Environmental Conservation about this, also with the town to just kind of get up to speed on what's going on. As you said, this was a bit alarming for many of us, just speaking for myself, not for my neighbors. But my understanding is the letter went out to quite a few folks who live in the Southview neighborhood, meaning Westall Drive, parts of Southview Drive, Joan Ave. And then when I communicated with the state, they informed me that people in Hidden Pines, in the Hidden Pines neighborhood, and also on Mary Drive are also required to be part of this permit area, if you will, but they weren't sent letters, and that was a mistake on the part of the state. So there's been a lot of confusion just within the neighborhood or neighborhoods about who is impacted by this and what this means.
So I'll add, if I could, when I did talk with folks at the Regional Planning Commission, the first guy, Dan Albrecht, who was looking things up in the Agency of Natural Resources database. So apparently their permits sit in a database that he can access, and was looking at the history of this. One of the old permits showed 9.11 acres. And he said, well, that's all those developments. And I said, it is not all those developments, because it's way bigger than 9.11 acres is apparently the roads and the road surfaces involved.
That's our share.
Which would be the town's share of what looks something like 19 or 28 acres total.
19.26, Nancy Carlson. Yeah.
So there was confusion. He was having trouble making sense from what my conversation in real time anyway, about what it was referring to. He did describe that all of these are considered Southview, Westall, Joan Avenue, Hidden Pines, Mary Drive, apparently all the same subdivision, which doesn't seem
Well, apparently at some point,
under the same permit.
our stormwater permits,
Yes.
we don't really fully understand whether it was the town that made that decision, but I think it was, or put them together. And no, we are not all part of the same neighborhood. No one belongs to any legal entity or association
Yep.
in any of those neighborhoods. The town of Richmond is the only legal entity on this stormwater project 6116-9050, who can even file an NOI.
So-
We as individuals, I've
Yes.
been informed by the state, cannot file the NOI, and the state nor the town can compel us to form an association.
So that might lead to my next conversation with Charlie Baker, who described a similar issue in the city of South Burlington. And I forget the name of the development. They also didn't have a homeowners association. They had to come into compliance. And I'm not saying we should do this because it's not what our attorney advises. But what apparently the city of South Burlington did is they said involuntarily, all you property owners are in this project. And they then managed the project and charged the property owners a percentage of project costs based on their percentage of impermeable surfaces. And that's unknown. It was fairly expensive, I guess, that's how they then managed it as a project. There wasn't a homeowner association. The city of South Burlington stepped in and did it. I will just say the city of South Burlington has a significantly larger number of staff than the town of Richmond.
To be fair, we have no staff as a neighborhood, right? So
I'm just going to tell you the conversation with our attorney was shut the door, don't answer the doorbell, because you don't, as the town, want to take this over. I'm just telling you what the city of South Burlington did according to the Regional Planning Commission. But they didn't do it on a volunteer basis. They charged the property owners their share. So whatever the percentage, if we call it 100% of the 19.21, 19.26, the town share is this, so the town will absorb, if it's one project, that percent. And the rest of the percentages then got allocated to all the property owners based on their percentage of impermeable surfaces within the scope of the project. I am not suggesting that's what we should do or have to do. It's the one example of what one other town did or city did faced with a similar situation.
yeah, I spoke with someone at DEC about this, and he did say to me that the town has the option of taking full legal responsibility for the whole permit, and then obviously the town could proceed in the manner you described with the special assessment or something along those lines if it wanted to. I don't know what all the options would be, but DEC did say that the town does have the option of taking full responsibility for it.
So when I asked also what that means, it means for us, it would mean hiring or contracting for staff to manage it and then doing all these contracts. But essentially, as the South Burlington project was described to me, you're along for the ride. It's like taxes. So whatever it costs, if you are 0.07% of the project, you will be charged 0.07%. He described that in South Burlington, they bonded it or funded it so that it was a payback over like 5 years, and it then became a supplement to your tax bill. So you pay your regular town taxes, or in the case of South Burlington, city taxes, and then you paid a supplemental payment if you were within scope of this stormwater project area. Again, I'm just telling you what the conversation I had with this guy today was about one approach.
I mean, I just want to put out there that we are still, at least I only speak for myself. I want to be aware other people have other views on this. I feel like I'm still very much just learning about this process and trying to get up to speed. So I don't feel like I'm able to comment tonight on whether or not that even sounds like a good idea from my perspective as a homeowner in Southview. Right. But I did just want to point out that we do have a bit of there's a ticking time bomb here, and that there is an opportunity to apply for ARPA funds from the state that would cover up to almost $50,000 of the expenses associated with the civil engineering study and the permit application process. The deadline is September 30th. And my understanding is the town has not applied for it yet. And the town is, I think, undoubtedly in the best position to apply for that funding at this point in time, especially because at least my understanding is that however this proceeds in the future, the town's going to be either the sole permittee or a co-permittee. And so as a taxpayer of the town, I think it is in the town's best interest and my best interest for the town to secure this money to offset the cost of this by up to $50K. But I did want to make sure everybody was aware this has to be submitted by September 30 or the door closes on that funding.
And I've been in communication with Madeline Russell, who's managing the POA funds. And if you look on the website, the deadline says October 31st. It's incorrect. They've moved it up to September 30th, and they have not changed their website. Wow. It is an application that literally takes 5 minutes. I've read through the application. It's just putting in numbers of permits, addresses, but again, as individuals, we cannot apply for the POA funds. And there's quote unquote, plenty of money there for this, but it's going fast.
So I'm just going to observe 50,000. If I had it, would be a lot of money.
That's nothing.
I am not convinced 50,000 is a lot of money in the scope of this project.
It doesn't cover construction or mitigation. You can only use it for the engineering study and the cost of the permit.
So what do we think the total start to finish? $1 million?
In the ballpark, probably.
I'm throwing out
So
figures.
I'm not surprised. I mean,
So when I thought about this, so far the town and the town attorney's advice has been very clear. Don't own this because then you'll be charging taxes to everybody to solve the Southview problem. And you will, if you break it, you bought it, you own it.
But I understand that you wouldn't be owning the entire project by submitting this fund application. You would just be getting in line for the funds.
That's not what our attorney says.
Well, were you reading what I wrote?
The name on it is Richmond. And
So when I did ask Dave about it last week, and he said that basically the town shouldn't submit the grant application. If the town submits the application, it increases the likelihood that the state would view the town as the sole responsibility for the stormwater permit. He did say a private resident could submit it. And then once an HOA is formed, at least there's a placeholder for the grant.
and I was told the same, like if a private resident can fill out the application, but the funds can't be transferred to an individual and they have to be transferred to a private entity, and we are not forming an association.
So if you're not forming an association, I mean, that is one of the options, right? So it's do nothing and hope for the best. Form an association, or as you have come here tonight and ask the town to take it over. From where I sit, asking the town to take it over is not going to be a low cost ask. And it's not going to be borne by all the taxpayers. The precedent from other towns apparently is first we have to come up with the legal vehicle by which we could make a surcharge to the tax payments for the affected properties. So you'd have to have the legal authority to do that. And the mechanism of then the formula to do it. And the will of the select board to say, we're going to take this on with, because we don't have those things in place now. And that's sort of a level of risk to the town. So when in my role, I'm trying to serve the people in Southview as well as the people not in Southview. And for those of us who have sat through a number of conversations of stormwater damage and mitigation, the town doesn't take those on for private property anywhere. And we have been asked over and over and over. I think we've sat here at least 6 times and people have asked the town to pay for things on private property. So what I'm laying out is, I think, a possible way forward if the select board were interested, but it's a caveat where a fork in the road, if the town owns it, we're going to go down the path of how do we charge the people in Southview for their share of the stormwater improvements.
I feel like though we're jumping ahead a bit here, and Brendan, I know you've had your hand up, so if I can express this and then
Yeah, I
I
see
would
if
love for you to talk to.
I'll call it.
I do feel like, I mean, my concern right now, first and foremost, because again, I don't think I'm not in a position to even express my preference on, do we form an HOA? Does the town take this over? I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. I just learned about this 10 days ago, right? And I've spent a lot of time reaching out to Josh, reaching out to the state, like scrambling to get as much information as I can just to wrap my head around this. And, and so if there's still time that we need to spend to just like fully wrap our heads around this and understand what the state's asking of us and what our legal obligations are here. But just going back to the ARPA funding, as a taxpayer of this town, I just feel like it would be irresponsible of the town to say, we're going to just take that $50,000 and just throw it in the trash and not use it to help pay for this permit. Because my understanding from my conversations with DEC is however we proceed, the town's going to be on that permit and sharing these costs at least somewhat, right? And so I just think given that it's due in just a matter of weeks, that's something that we need to prioritize right now. And sorry for taking up so much air, Brendan.
I fully agree there. I'm just trying to, I guess, clarify my understanding of how this neighborhood, which in my view is like several neighborhoods, is being classified as a single neighborhood. And I guess what's problematic for me is that the threshold here for acreage is not a rate or a percentage of the amount of land, it's a number, well, 3 acres. And, we could be talking about 3 out of 200,000 or 3 out of 3, and you would, meet that requirement. And so is it accurate that the reason that we're being classified sort of the neighborhood as it is because of the way the permits have been filed in the past? And if the permits had been filed sort of differently in different sections by the town, then we would all maybe not be breaking this 3-acre threshold. Is that an accurate understanding?
That's a good question.
I don't know. You're at, if I reframe that, what you're asking me is what Kevin Burke is thinking.
Yes.
I don't know.
And
I really don't know. He's the program manager of the stormwater program.
Well, hold on, I don't think, Caitlin Buckets, I don't think we're asking what he's thinking. I think we understand the law that's in place. What we're asking is the history of how we got here. We are not an HOA formed to a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Why are we an entity? Because the town has been filing a permit on our behalf. And not requesting the voice of the citizens of that neighborhood to make decisions moving forward. Nor were we informed when the decision was made to change that and no longer file the permit.
Go ahead.
Yes, Danielle Bedoin. I live up on Hidden Pine Circle and I'm on the same set of questions here. Ultimately, my question is, why is the individual Hidden Pines permit, as I live on Hidden Pines, was added to this combined renewal permit that was submitted by the town in 2020 in the first place? And so if I may, I just want to read a little bit of the information that I put together here in regards to stormwater discharge permits in the Hidden Pines area. The information I found showed that the town submitted a notice of intent for a stormwater discharge permit in July of 2020 for a combined renewal of 3 separate stormwater discharge permits, Hidden Pines, Mary Drive, and Southview. This combined renewal permit was issued in September 2020 under the previous regulations and is now general permit 6116.9010, and can be found on the state's 3-acre site list, last updated September 2020. Prior to this combined renewal permit, the Hidden Pines and Mary Drive individual permits indicated these sites were each less than a 3-acre site. The previous individual Southview permit did indicate this development was greater than a 3-acre site. The state draft list of the 3-acre site in 2019 showed only the individual Southview permit as a future 3-acre designated site, and the state did not include the previous individual Hidden Pines or Mary Drive permits. So it appears to me that the state did not intend for the individual Hidden Pine or Mary Drive sites to be listed as a 3-acre site or a part of a larger combined site. Additionally, it seems that no residents on Hidden Pines Circle Drive or Extension were notified of the town or state of any step of this permitting process. Of note, it is my understanding that Hidden Pines area was historically never intended or originally designed to be a single development. Slowly and over time, Hidden Pines area was developed as singular houses, separate small subdivision sites, and originally named Hidden Pines Road. So some of my questions are, why is this individual Hidden Pines permit, why was this added to the combined renewal permit by the town in 2020? Who renewed this permit on behalf of Hidden Pines site? And can the town amend the general permit to remove and separate the previously individual Hidden Pines permits?
I don't know the answer to that, but the 6116-9010 is that's 9.11 acres according to.
According to the list, but if you look at the actual permit that was issued, it is up to the 19 now. Because the state only requested the Southview individual, according to the information that I read, this is clearly a complicated matter. And so what I'm gonna do is back up and say, what I do request is a special select board meeting or an ad hoc committee meeting to discuss these issues as they pertain to Hidden Pines area with all parties involved present. And I request the letter go out as notification of this meeting to all homeowners in a timely manner.
So it would seem in that you'd want to invite Kevin Burke and maybe the Secretary of Environmental Conservation. I can't answer your questions about the stormwater program.
Right.
But I think the question, if I may, is partly why were these three up until 2020 separate permits? There was one for Southview, one for Mary Drive, and one for Hidden Pines. Why were they combined and whose decision was that? Was it the town that decided to combine them as the applicant at the time, or was that the state or somebody else?
And if I may,
Sure.
it appears on the NOI signed by the town, that it was a town that renewed all three in combination,
But,
opposed to singularly individually.
but now it's somehow more from 9.11 to 19 something in the mix there.
Right.
That's your, that's, we're not talking about the actual acreage, we're talking
Well,
about. Combination.
Well, so the 9.11 acres, if that's all town road, you can picture that, I don't know who did it, but if that's the sum impermeable surfaces of all the town roads through that part of town, that's sort of what it looks like to me. It's the 9.11 acres of town road.
And so
That's
why-
what the regional planning guy said. That's what it looks like to me.
Why was Hidden Pines involved in the first place?
How did they get
It did not include,
So I just,
we are
Go ahead.
included to that.
to kind of follow up with that, so this is Dorian Evans, the permit states.
Could you come up with a mic? We'll pick you up, sorry.
Yeah. So the permit talks about the development, and I think that's a lot of information that we don't know is what was the development. So they talk in the permit, it talks about like subdivision, subdevelopments. But if the entire property was one as a whole, if Mary Drive and Hidden Pines were all part of this development, and I don't think a lot of us know that. So this was whenever the development started, and then that's what the state's looking at from the 3-acre rule. But I would say to Sarah's point about applying for the ARPA funds, we need to know that answer, because if for whatever reason, those are 3 different developments that are over 3 acres individually, that's 3 different ARPA grants.
The whole, I researched the whole Act 250.
Sir, could you identify yourself?
Hey, Kelly.
Thank you.
I researched the whole background of the Act 250 back when the town made the grievous error of connecting Hidden Pines into Southview in the first place, which is a long story. But back around Hidden Pines Road was first put in probably around 1976, I believe. I'm not sure. I can't find any records on that. The earliest records I can find is an Act 250 permit for the Hidden Pines development, which was 9 lots and about 1,400 feet of road, and also reserved what is now basically the Southview section as a woodlot reservation for forestry purposes. That was then addressed under a different Act 250 permit where that was subdivided into all the lots, and there have been about 5 or 6 different amendments to that Act 250 permit, which gradually expanded the Southview permit, ending in probably 1991 or 1995, 1996 maybe, when the town, the last one, Bill Fitzgerald, built the last houses up at the end. And basically, in order for the town to recoup money and for a certain attorney in town to recoup money from Larry Westall, he had to build that out. And in order to build that out, he needed all the lots and refused to put in a turnaround. The turnaround issue was for fire engines and stuff like that because they couldn't get in. Without having that extra lot, he couldn't afford to make it profitable. The deal would have fallen through, and a certain attorney would have been out his $20,000 on the town of Richmond, would have been out their $20. So we sold the town out, or sold Hidden Pines out, and okayed the development, and they put the road in. Not only did they not research it, but they put the road in without getting an Act 250 amendment to it, because the right of way they put it in was only allowed for agricultural access only for the woodlot. Then they put the road in, Larry Westall put the road in, not on the center line of the right of way, but a little bit too far to the left, which then made John Kent's property have to transfer from Hidden Pines into Southview and increased his property taxes by him being there. But also it brought his addition that he put on before the road went in into noncompliance as far as the setback went to the road. And the town made him tear down his addition, at which point in time, the Kents got a little bit fed up with the town of Richmond and split for Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So that's kind of the nutshell background of where this whole thing stands as far as the Hidden Pines people are concerned. It was never envisioned, there's no record of it being anything other but its own standalone development. Only due to the sellout of the town is there any connection whatsoever to Southview. The same as with Mary Drive. If you look at the maps, Mary Drive, those wetlands go into a completely different drainage than what anything in Southview and Hidden Pines go to, except when you get way down to the bottom where the old Brown's Trace goes down. So there's a huge precedent out there of these being three completely separate developments going all the way back, way before all the stormwater rule and any of this goes on. So I think it kind of behooves to take a look at that and really move to separate those three permits back out again, where Mary Drive and Hidden Pines then fall under the 3-acre exemption, and we don't have to worry about it.
Go ahead.
My name is Charlotte Phillips. I live in the Kent's house. So I'm very familiar with the easement and all of that situation. I also want to point out, to complicate it, when you look at the map, Bradford Terrace, not in this one. Off of Southview, not actually included.
That, according to the Regional Planning Commission folks, they call that separate. I'm just telling you what the.
No, and I'm just bringing it up because what is happening here is there's an area that has been described as a neighborhood.
Right.
And from a permitting perspective, it's 4 different regions that 3 of them have been put together, possibly inappropriately, and 1 of them still isn't included. So even as you start talking about it's the town road and it's 9 acres of the town road, Bradford Terrace is still a town road. It's off of Southview. It's fully contained, not on this particular permit. And we're all higher than Westall. Like and I assume I'm on the Hidden Pines permit because my house was originally on Hidden Pines, but my address is on Southview. So as we start to pull this out, there's just a lot. I think going back to what Danielle said about an ad hoc meeting, a special select board meeting, we're missing a lot of information. And the fact that an NOI was started and this whole process was started a year ago, and this is the first any of us have heard about it, was a little shocking to everybody else.
So I'm thinking, David, as a follow-up, I'll be honest, most of these permits are not like closely reviewed by the select board. A lot of the action happens in the town administration. I'm aware of the history of the different neighborhoods up there just from having driven through them over the last 30 odd years. But I think if I try to boil it down to this question, what are the circumstances by which these distinct neighborhoods developed at different times became a single development? I mean, and then it's actually called the Southview Subdivision presumably inclusively of all of those areas, right? So I think the key question is, how did that come about? And could it be, if that was done arbitrarily, could it be undone? It seems to me, just from everything we've heard, is that some state employee just went ahead, did all this, and I'd like an explanation. And I think that's a meeting.
Town.
Okay. It's a conversation of the town and A&R, like how did that come about? Because it's looking at the records.
Andrea Ash, in reviewing the information, the state is very clear that it is Southview, and the permits the applications that have been submitted by the town contractor, whomever, again, unknown, included Mary Drive, Hidden Pines, and Southview. I live in Hidden Pines. So that's just also really clear. One thing about getting that ARPA money, you don't have to have an active permit in submittal to access that money. So when you think about, oh, do I have to get the permit complete? You do not. You can apply for the money.
Okay. Go ahead. You.
I think that what we're asking for here is that the town take the responsibility of submitting for the money that is on the table, and then we make decisions from there of what we do. By leaving that money on the table, you're again not servicing the citizens of that community, which have not been serviced up until now, in that you all had the notification a year ago, made a motion that affected the community, expected the state to make that communication, but at that point, it was on the town to make that communication. We are now at a point where we are a month away from that deadline, and if we don't meet that deadline, we're all gonna be paying for it. So we are asking you to do your part, since you didn't do it a year ago, to submit for the permit.
Josh, is that something we can, what are your, as it would be town staff applying for it? Is that something we can do?
Well, the attorney advises against the town applying for that.
It is a fork in the road, David. It's a fork in the road. So if we apply for the money we'd have to define the scope of the project, right? So are we talking all of these neighborhoods inclusively?
Well, that legitimizes.
Which would undermine the desire to.
She had her hand up for quite a while. I'll call on her next. June, go ahead.
So I think that we have to apply for the money, and either way, the town has more than 3 acres of impervious surface in the neighborhood. So it doesn't make any sense not to apply. You're gonna have to do that anyway for what is town road. And then we figure out, once we talk to the state, who's responsible for what, because we need answers from the state of, one, how is it they developed a map that is that they're calling a development that they were not developed together. Even Southview wasn't developed by one developer. And so what makes it a development when we don't have an association? Why are we not all private property owners on town roads? It was called Southview by the developer, but there is nothing in the state statute about this stormwater issue that says anything about private property owners. And I know the letter is scary, and people are thinking, oh, we have to react. No, we do not. We have no obligation. The state has an obligation to tell us how they developed the map, what is the watershed that they're determining, because this is all dependent on polluting a watershed, from my understanding. So we have a lot of questions that need to be answered by the state. And the statute does say that the secretary can define the areas any way he wants. But in a different part of the Clear Water or Clean Water Act, under, I forget what part, maybe stormwater utility, it says that you would provide public comment on draft basin plans. Why wouldn't you do that if you have a draft stormwater plan? Like, we were not involved, and this needs to happen. And in the meantime, we need to try to get as much financial assistance as we can get from the state. This is on the state, and we need answers.
Thank you, June. Adam?
Can we apply for the money and specify that it's for the town to cover the town portion, and then hash out why all these individual landowners are lumped together? Like, it makes, I guess.
Well, if the 50,000 is pretty Kelly again, 50,000 for the development of an application, which at this point doesn't exist.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't say it has to include this or this and this.
Right,
You can decide at that point what goes into the application and use the 50,000 for that. It's just making money available for you to develop an application to come in.
In the back.
Andrew Corch, sorry, I have a teacher's license. So Andrew Corch, by not applying for the funds, you're adding an additional tax to us, because that's a $50,000 that we are going to have to pay, and you're going to initially shove that onto the homeowners. We can't do it. You have to.
So ultimately, the dilemma is, we need the money.
Maybe.
But if we file, according to our attorney, if we file for it, we own it. So how do we get around that?
He doesn't say we own it, he says we increase the likelihood of owning it.
Yeah.
You said, no, I'm right. It says it increases the likelihood that in the eyes of the state that the town would own it. And it wouldn't be like, it would be up to the town to do the whole project.
But then we need some kind of.
And then we're back
special
to
assessment
then we're back to the South Burlington model.
That's why I brought her up at the beginning, because there is a way forward, but it's not, in the examples that I was told, it's not general tax revenue. It's really focused on the properties that are impacted by the stormwater project.
Josh, I think our attorney could file on behalf of the town and the residents of the town a stay of execution on that until it's sorted out.
On the grant application deadline?
What's that?
And the grant application deadline? I don't know that he.
I mean, that as the vehicle for filing.
I don't
for-
think they'll extend a grant deadline because we don't know what's going on.
There'll likely be other grants
Then we're going to,
potentially out there, but this is one that is sort of a bird in hand at this point.
Andrea Ash, I think it could be research, but my understanding, as it might be, you can apply for the money. If you're granted it, you can reject that allocation of money to you. So
Good
even though
choice.
you are allocated that money, you can say, just kidding, you can just keep it.
That's how grants from the state typically.
Yeah.
So I'm just generally curious, does your lawyer have any environmental compliance experience? So your lawyer is advising that the town is non-compliant with state regulations and we're choosing to sit on it. But we have to act at some point, because all of us got letters, all says that we're potentially financially liable, including liens on our homes. And this is the first we're hearing about it. Like from a town standpoint, you guys got a similar letter, you're similarly responsible. And I would say like the language and the communication that we're talking about, like we're not using the right terms. We're not talking about it from a standpoint that is what is in the environmental regulations. So to have somebody come in, whether it's the state, an environmental consultant, to actually advise on what the regulations are, whether or not we're going to provide any additional comment on it. But there's the whole environmental compliance piece of it, not to mention the money. There's the initial money, the initial funding for the engineering studies. Then there's the compliance piece of it. There's the follow-up, there's the mitigation. Like there's a lot of different pieces to this that we're all kind of like speculating what's going to happen. But right now we know that we're non-compliant with the state. And unless we do something, we're going to remain non-compliant. And then there's additional penalties and potential liens on our homes because of that.
I would say the only nuance would be that you know that the state says you're non-compliant and that they don't really seem to know what's going on. So that would be
They acknowledge that we're kind of a unique
I think we do
situation.
need to sort it out, not saying that it'll solve all the problems, but they obviously need to clarify a lot of timelines.
yeah, the
I
state
think
created
we
a
need
mess
to provide
by calling you guys Southview, which is not true. They've created an entity that now needs to be managed their way.
They created that entity. though.
Oh, that's needs to be unraveled.
As a non-resident in these neighborhoods, as a taxpayer for the town of Richmond, I would be okay if the select board, and the town administration went back to the town attorney.
Yeah.
To find out if this could be re-amended to be segregated back out by the proper neighborhoods, because if anything, Mary Drive and Pinnacle View are part of Sadler Meadow. It's not part of Southview. So that's a number one error, easily corrected. Because
Well, it's clear we need to go back to the attorney and say, how did these all get grouped together? Why is this an issue now?
It's a total piece of information. Patrick Monks, who signed the state permit, is on your DRB. Hello? Can you connect some dots?
Patrick was head of the stormwater program at DEC for years and
And
years.
signed the permit. He's on your DRB. How about you knock, knock, hey, could we have this conversation? Could you possibly help us out? Could you help us figure this out? Could you help our attorney figure this out? Could you maybe guide us?
Yeah.
Because I'm okay with you going back with taxpayer dollars to potentially break this back out to resolve the problem for a lot of people. And if you can break it back out, then it opens the pot for 3 ARPA applications, which would be key.
Or 4.
But I don't recommend you apply for the ARPA applications before your next select board meeting. I think in the next 2 weeks, you confirm if you can break them out, you try to break them out and go after the more money rather than the less.
Yeah.
That's my recommendation, but bring in Patrick Monks to start to help you investigate this. If he doesn't want anything to do with it, you gotta wonder why. But I don't think you should jump into this just because there's a deadline of September 30th. Take your 2 weeks and collect your details.
Caitlin Filkins, I just want to say that I've heard this again and again, that you've said we don't want to take responsibility by taking action. You've already taken responsibility by making a motion a year ago and not taking action. So if we want to go to the place of whose responsibility is it, it's all of ours. And we are asking you as our select board to take the responsibility to file for the money that can help all of us and help every person in this town not have to pay more out of pocket and out of our taxpayer dollars. So I would like to make a decision today to to have you commit to filing for the money and to have a separate meeting to discuss the details of the rest of this. This is a clearly very complicated issue that is going to take a lot of time to sort out. It's going to take the state to be able to clear some guidelines up and figure out what is happening with the different section of the neighborhood and what is what there and how we got there. We're not trying to figure that out today. The deadline that we're approaching is a significant amount of money for the taxpayers of Richmond, and we are asking you to do that.
I have a quick question. And Danielle, you might be able to help me. The east engineering drawing, the plan of the Southview with Hidden Pines.
The larger
The
one?
larger plan.
Yes,
Do we know who
that was a part of the NOI for the
that the
permit
town
that we're
contracted?
submitting for the 3050, I believe.
Okay.
On
So
on
there's
the combined
A drawing
permits.
that I believe the town instigated and has that combined all 3 or 4 developments. Or 5, however you want.
The basic question is still whose decision was on that?
Yes, that's the question that we really do need answered.
And how do we undo it?
Denise Barnard, I, as listening to you, and I feel awful what you guys are going through. But when we had the roundtable discussion about volunteer screening, I wondered if it would be possible to have like maybe 2 representatives, 2 from Hidden Pines, 2 from Mary Drive, 2 from Southview, with 2 select board members, Josh, and the 2 entities from the state come together at this table so that the buck stops here and we're not playing telephone tag all the time. We know the answers, and then, show them proof of when they got their letters, when you got your letters.
Yeah.
And so it's all right at one table.
Okay, so I am not an attorney. We've got this question that as our attorney has said, if we do this, we own it. My question is, and if we own it, does that mean that does that lead us to the question of how do we pay for it? Is it the legal responsibility of owning it, or is it the financial responsibility of owning it?
But point of clarification, I think Josh, you said the attorney said that it would make it more likely that in the eyes of the state, the town is taking full responsibility, not that like the town would apply for this funds and therefore own the permit.
Right, that's my question.
Yeah, I think it's more the financial, right? Because I think that.
Okay, so if it's the financial, if we file for this and we own it, at that point what's the legal mechanism for creating some legal apparatus, special assessment district or something that makes sure that the whole town is not paying for this? Is that the question of if we have financial responsibility for this, what has to happen for us to create a special assessment district to get the people who are in this area to pay for it? Does that have to be a townwide vote to create a special assessment district, or is that something we have to do?
Right. I can follow up on those. It's good questions.
Yeah.
June?
I think that is the question. Same one on the right question.
I just want to follow up on the comment that was made about the property owners in the Southview map being non-compliant. We are not an entity of any sort. And for the letter to indicate that we are is borderline harassment. Like it's kind of an like heavy hand to an entity that doesn't know anything, or to individuals that don't know anything about this.
Yeah.
What is reality is that the town already has responsibility. You've filed the permits in the past, you sent the NOI in last year, you have more than 3 acres of impervious surface in the neighborhood. At some point, the town's going to be responsible anyway. It is not fiscally responsible not to file the permit, and then we hash out who's paying for what, because it's going to cost more money in fines. And so I feel like we need to move forward and then figure out the paying for it side, but we need to meet with the state to determine how they came to this plan.
Yeah, Roger that.
Hang on.
Charlotte Posey. I appreciate what Denise was saying about having members from different neighborhoods, but I want to reiterate what June just said. We're individual property owners. So we can have I live in Southview, but I live almost a mile away from where the Filkins live on Overlook.
So to say we'd have 2 from Hidden Pines and 2 from Southview and 2 from Mary, we are individual property owners. We are not a development in that way.
Public hearing.
I was gonna reiterate the same thing. You know, I've lived in Southview now for 25 years, right? I've always considered I am a private homeowner living in Richmond.
Yeah.
Right? That's where I live. I just happen to be in this subsection of Richmond, just as if somebody is on Baker Street, right? It's no different in my mind. I'm just a individual property owner, and that's how I've always looked at myself, and I think my neighbors look at themselves that way. And I do not have more than 3 acres of impervious surface on my private acreage. So it's getting this was a big surprise, like what's going on? You know, it's like where does this even come from? And you know, the wording in the letter is concerning. If there are funds out there that are going to help at least solve some of the problems, and if there are, you know, why not just going to apply 3-4 times anyway? Just do it. You know, the state doesn't know what's going on. The town doesn't know what's going on, but let's go ahead and apply for funds anyway. But I think everybody in this room looks at themselves as individual property owners.
Yeah. Jay?
Okay, so can we all agree we don't know what's going on? Okay, which leads to what I'm going to say. Josh is over there making a list of questions we need answered.
Yeah.
We've got, and I just want to, I really like us to focus for the time being on what are those questions that we need answered. How did the state choose to group them this way?
Yeah, that's the first question.
Okay. A second question that's not for the state, but for our attorney is, how do we best make sure that the people in the affected area wind up paying for this and not the whole town? That's another question. Okay, what other questions do we have that we need answers to?
Yeah, just how I'd phrase it is, what was the determining factor that all these private residents are grouped together in an over 3?
Yes, that we need.
I imagine the answer is because it was part of an Act 250 permit. And that's the reason, but
I just
Exactly, just to follow what Adam's saying, if you go back to the Act 250 permits, as Ernie was talking about, I mean, we've lived in Hidden Pines for over 30 years, and we've seen the build out of Southview, and it's piece by piece. So those were all separate Act 250 permits.
Right.
As was Hidden Pines, separate. So if the state, again, I don't know where their information is coming from, but if it was lumped together because Southview was kind of an area, Hidden Pines was an area, that's irrelevant.
Right.
They're all separate Act 250 permits. And as you said, we are all private landowners.
That's a really good point. Is there a list of the separate?
I'm just going to distinguish the letter itself conspicuously ignores Act 250 permits and makes specific reference to previously subject to a stormwater discharge permit. So my thesis is they're looking at a history of stormwater discharge permits whenever those started, because they didn't start in 1970s. They started somewhere after that.
I think you were next.
I guess I have 2 things. One, I know that there's questions in the chat.
Oh, okay.
that
I'll
have
check
come up.
those.
And then the other is
Oh, boy, yeah.
kind of a general statement of, as an individual resident in the town of Richmond, what are my taxes going to currently in regards to stormwater? And how is that the same or different from other individual residents of Richmond?
How'd you answer that, Josh?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
Because we've had these conversations with other people who have been impacted by flooding. And what the town has historically been responsible for, and this is supported by our attorney, regional planning commission, et cetera, is stormwater elements that were either established by the town decades ago, and there's a handful of those, or they're literally within the right of way of a road. If it's not in the right of way of the road, the town has not dealt with it. And there are many people who've been in this room who have been impacted by flooding outside the right of way and asked the town to help them address that. And the town declined that opportunity. So that has to do with the legal structure as well as the financial structure at the town for, as long as I've been here, as long as the select board has existed, has dealt with stuff within the right of way.
Was your question in stormwater permitting?
Yeah, so I would like to clarify that this isn't stormwater from a flooding standpoint, but from more of a Clean Water Act. And
But it's all stormwater.
I
Sorry.
agree, it's stormwater runoff, but when we're talking about like the feasibility studies and the mitigation that's required for this, we're not talking about repairing of roads or repairing of issues, we're talking about what is eventually going downstream. So we're talking about the flow of water through the town of Richmond.
So I'm probably gonna say the same thing again. Individual developers have to submit stormwater permits in the current world, and that developer pays for everything, and if it fails, they pay to fix it, not the town. So if it's on private property, it is not the town's responsibility to construct, maintain, or improve it. For better or worse, just that's been the practice.
How was the town responsible for submitting the permit previously?
So I think my best thesis is that there has been this conflation of the town roads.
Right.
And what they call the subdivision. Because we own the roads and we do how many permits per year on
That was your question.
roads?
Okay, I have, can I review? My name's Danielle Bedoin. So part of my statement, I can be happy to submit it, but I did also compile the documents that led me to that as well. And so just to go chronologically here, the state had a draft list of what they determined to be their 3-acre site in 2019. Which designated only the individual Southview permit, which was referenced previously.
For Southview Drive.
For Southview only, which was the 9 impervious acres.
Yeah.
And so if you look at that Excel sheet, that is exactly what's there, along with that permit number and the 9, and those acres involved. Then in July of 2020, the town submitted a notice of intent by East Engineering, which included Southview, Joan Ave, Hidden Pines, Hidden Drive, Mary Drive, all on the same renewal applicant. So that's where the combination of our 3 permits all ended up on that same renewal, which then was issued in September 2020, which is on old regulations. And then this was the permit that was issued by the state in September 2020. This is the one that is combined us all together with the 3 separate permit numbers for Mary Drive, Hidden Pines, and Southview. And if you go back and look at and you research and pull those records that show the specific acreage, if you pull Mary Drives and Hidden Pines, that's where we get the under 3-acre designation there. And so that is what the state reviewed here. And then when you go to, and then theoretically, the page that then comes back to the town should have a town signature on it. It is unclear if that is actually occurring or not based on the records I was able to find, but there is a signature from the state. Then in September of 2020, the state republished its list of the 3-acre site on their, and what was shown here was the Southview subdivision with the same acreage, but now with the renewed permit that came through in 2020. So that is how we went from a single permit identified by the state to a multiple permit identified by the state now as a single renewal permit.
Okay.
Submitted by the town. And so again, my question is, why was that submitted by the town in combination? Was it arbitrarily done? And can we have that amended to be separated out?
And it's pre-3-acre rule as part of your point, right?
Yes.
So perhaps unintended consequences, like who cares back then, except now we do.
That exactly. And I'm happy to submit this package.
Yeah, that would be good.
Mr. Chairman, much as we'd like to close this out tonight, we all have agreed that there's a lot we don't know. Several people here have made the suggestion that we have a special select board meeting. I would support that to give us some time to get answers and then come right back. My next Monday, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I have nothing on my calendar next Monday.
I don't know that, I was looking at a calendar. I've got 3 days to prepare for that meeting, basically, if we do it on Monday. which doesn't give us a lot of time to get other answers.
Did we hold this off till the next regularly scheduled select?
Well, no, I was thinking September 23rd would give us some time to gather more information. I know that's a couple weeks out. But that gives us time to gather information, get some advice and invite some other attendees. So if we wanted to invite a representative from the state or engineers or even our attorney.
Yeah.
That might be
getting us too
helpful.
close to the ARPA filing deadline?
So the application, the application is super simple. Like I forget who mentioned it. Yeah, I looked at the application. It's like 10 minutes. It does not take long to file the application.
I just want to make it very clear that I really appreciate wanting to get Hidden Pines and Mary out, and you guys are under 3 acres. We are still not a development.
Right.
And you have to remember this when you're getting these answers to these questions. Don't treat Southview like we're a development because we are over 3 acres. We are all individual property owners.
And Southview didn't happen all at once. It was piecemeal.
And so don't even use the term development.
They have to
Anything of any of your communication, we are not a development. Take the sign down, you never know, right?
Yeah, but it has to go back to the Act 250 permit. So the Act 250 permit says you are in development. Don't try to skirt that. You got, it is what it is. It's gonna go back.
I think it's like Hidden Pines where all the different little pieces, all separate.
Yes, the best step is by having that. My name is James Roberts. I live on Hidden Pines Circle around the corner of Southview Drive. And yeah, I mean, overall, I think the biggest task is just to make sure the town is a very active and willing participant with us to help solve this problem because it is, I mean, well over 100 individual citizens trying to solve this problem that we have no ability to solve on our own. This is why we're part of a town, why we have a town government to help us work with it. Like, it's not a situation of a developer banged in 10 houses, 10 years ago and didn't do stormwater management. Like, it's a massive area with a variety of areas, and we really need the town to not come back and say our lawyers have not talked about that. And so we, just let it sit. And that's, that's what we need. We really need to go forward.
Well, we've gotten a lot of information tonight. We have a lot to work with. Hopefully we'll get some answers soon.
Well, I just like to say, I want a way forward that does not leave you twisting in the wind, which is kind of where I think a lot of us see you right now. The attorney wants to spare us financial liability, but if we can get an answer to how to manage the financial liability, I don't see any reason for us not to get involved.
Yeah.
So just for bigger context, again, trying to talk to folks at the Regional Planning Commission who have a bigger picture. And they said, it was their perception that a very large percentage of whatever I call it, they are calling it development subdivision neighborhoods, permitted developments have homeowner associations. So that is apparently a really common practice across developments around the state. And that's where I landed. What if they don't? And that's how I came up with the city of South Burlington description earlier. There's another fork in the road with other implications, potentially.
And I know that those individual homeowners pay $25,000 each. And now that is not something that, any of us are considering doing. And we weren't developed like a development. And it's the developer's responsibility to form the HOA. Right. And that none of the many developers of this complicated parcel formed an HOA.
Right. One thing I am, again, not an attorney. My sister is, I'm not. But there are HOAs and there are HOAs. I know that friends of mine who lived in the South who belong to HOAs come along and say your mailbox is the wrong color and all that. We would not be envisioning that kind of HOA. It would be,
There's no way through. It's not happening. It's not happening.
Okay, I understand that. But what would you hear us even say?
Just to be clear, it's not happening.
I understand that. But
the whole point of an HOA is to manage utilities, to manage sidewalk, to plow the roads.
We were discussing this a couple times back, the phrase stormwater management association.
Go ahead, June.
Bringing us back to the date of the meeting, I think that we should see when we can have the people in the room that need to be in the room, including Kevin Burke and the secretary of the department, so that the answers, we're going to get the answers we need to figure out what direction to go in. I don't think we should pick an arbitrary date. I think the first thing is to see when can those two people be in the room. So and I think we should invite our our state senators from our
Yeah.
district and Jana.
I agree.
Yeah, that sounds, but we'd like to try to get that done before the filing deadline.
Yes, well, yes.
I think that it's reasonable to tell them
Why
we
not
expect
apply
it to be done before the filing deadline.
Why not apply anyway? The town can use the money.
You have to get it.
That's a good
Right.
point.
And it doesn't obligate you.
You're not gonna
as-
apply anyway.
No, that's a completely valid point.
It doesn't obligate you in any way.
If you don't know how many applications you need yet, that's the key.
Figure
it out.
Well.
And you're gonna need the money
Really-
and you're going to be required to file at some point. So it doesn't make sense not to.
That's not in there. That's for only one.
That's just.
So should we contemplate filing at least one request? The discussion earlier is that applying for a grant doesn't mean you have to accept it.
Right.
And the attorney's advice is it's illustrative of your ownership of the issue. But we are at least going to own the road
Application.
portion of
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
impermeable surfaces.
Yeah.
So I think that's without being
gets us in.
explicit.
Yeah.
If we
Okay.
can apply in a way that is obtuse on the scope.
I don't recall the details of the application. I'm not sure how obtuse on the scope we can be, but if it's the will of the board to apply, I can fill out the application. It's
Yeah.
pretty simple.
And recognize if this is a first step down a path, there is this conversation, and it's why I picked up on this with the Regional Planning Commission staff. And it may not seem fair or just, but the legislation has been apparently explicit to however they define developments. And if you fall into their category of development, whether it's 1 or 4, they're going to look at you as a development and you have to do the things to come into compliance. And so that is sort of out of our hands, but it's a question of how we move forward, I guess.
Is there anybody on the board who would be opposed to the town going ahead and filing?
No.
Okay, well then at least we have that.
So you want me to file?
Do you want a motion so that Josh
A
is.
motion would probably be
I
good.
move we file.
Second.
Calling for a vote.
Aye.
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 And be obtuse as possible.
Yeah.
Are there any?
Are there any property owners that have a more than 3-acre parcel individually?
It's not the
Not-
flow, it's just the impervious.
Not impermeable.
No, but.
No one paved your lawn.
Okay, well, you brought us a lot of information tonight. We have a lot of work to do. So hopefully we'll get some answers and get them all rolling soon.
Yeah. Can I just close with something? It is my impression that this is potentially a significant amount of money. And the 50,000 will be helpful, but it's going to be sort of a modest contribution. When I asked about the duration of the South Burlington project, he said many years.
Oh, boy.
Like, it's not something, it was like bing, bang, boom. It started and finished in 2 or 3 years. It was-
But nonetheless, we owe it to our citizens who have potential liens against their houses to get this answered with all due dispatch.
So out of
And
curiosity,
one other comment from the Regional Planning Commission, that when they make those threats, it's not clear that the governor is interested in throwing cold water on the Vermont real estate market in that fashion. So it's not entirely clear how that threat will play out.
so
But we have to assume for the time being that it is a very real threat until proven otherwise.
Thank
It's
you.
still a matter of disclosure for any prospective seller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or buyers.
You can't just say, oh, it's
Exactly
not going
right.
to come to anything. You have to treat it very seriously.
Effectively freeze.
Yes.
our
I
neighborhood.
guess I Dorian Evans, just 2 points. One, when you're applying for the grant, it is very specific on what it is for. It is not for the entire project. It is specifically, I believe, for the feasibility studies. It is that initial part of the project. But so there's that part only.
Yeah.
And so then the other part, just because there's potential liens, potential disclosures on if you're planning to sell your house, what about the people that came in moved in after this regulation came into place? I'm included in that, but I'm not included in the time period where the town knew of the issue, but didn't disclose it to the residents.
Yes.
So that's, I feel like, a whole other section, but I mean, we've had a lot of turnover in our town and our neighborhood. But that's a potential issue for some residents as well.
I just bought a house 2 months ago. A lot of money, most money I've ever spent. If I knew this was happening, I would never, ever have bought that house. And I hope it doesn't turn out that I wish I never lived here, but very excited.
Thank you for hearing us and for moving the motion to apply for the grant. We appreciate that. I understand it's a very complicated topic. I would also suggest that if you're still looking into the permits and if there's an opportunity to submit more than one, to get that information before that, if we aren't able to do that, because then there's more money to the taxpayers, right? I appreciate you all holding an additional meeting for us to sort through this and involving the state, because it is clearly very complicated and hopefully we can work it out. So thank you.
One quick question, how is the town going to communicate with the residents?
That's a good question.
Well, typically this, and we should sort of apologize for this, but our MO for most topics is we have a public meeting and we talk about it.
But we will certainly post anything we find at the front porch forum, but what if you don't see the front porch forum issue? We could create a mailing list just for this topic, but we need to get email addresses sent to us. Here's a stupid suggestion. If you were to share our new assistant's address, whose name I completely forget, and she could put this in together, people could send their email addresses to her. She could make up a mailing list. Could we maybe do that?
Yeah, that would be fair.
Kind of.
Okay, so can we share her address?
Let it go out to all the residents on these roads, because this has been very grassroots for me stopping.
Well, we would need.
I don't know that we have a mailing address.
Not everyone is here and not everyone still knows that.
Right.
I don't know if I have a complete address list. Is the state?
Can we get that from the lister card?
Where's the state?
It's the.
I just don't know.
You have the confines of what was submitted for the permit, right? We have all seen that map, those of us who've been sharing the emails. You can, with the town clerk, look at the addresses that are included on those streets.
Yeah. Physical address.
So I think
I just want to know who's included in, but you're right, we have a map.
we have a map, and
So do we.
yeah. I guess that's the easiest because not everybody is here, is to send out a physical mailing and also back it up with, posting. We don't have a town Facebook, but we have Front Porch Forum
Website.
put it up on the
Doing
website with the
email
banner, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you let us know how, like, the avenues, whether it be your website, Front Porch Forum, I mean, a couple of neighbors and we literally went around and put notifications in people's mailboxes about this meeting. That's how grassroots we had to do to get the word out. Because a lot of people hadn't received the letters that are still coming because the state didn't have the addresses. So the more we know, we can do another pass to make sure everyone knows where to go look for the information.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that, I mean, we know all the addresses there, even if it does go to Bradford Terrace or does go to like the few homes that are on Southview that are supposedly not applicable to that, just a general awareness. The emails that have gone out to the people that I've talked to on Bradford Terrace, their question, does this apply to me? So having that notification too of we're doing our research, we're looking into what specific homes apply. So even if they're not going to be applicable in the end, they may still appreciate hearing from the town that you're looking into.
I'm sure they would, yes.
Yeah, certainty is always better.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
It'll be all right.
Not peace in the Middle East.
Original. It's the secretary's gonna do.
Where a lot of the stormwater is actually really started.
So the secretary being on.
Like, because it was over a certain amount, it's actually 50.
Director
You guys, one of the things that my experience in state government.
All the time I'm working, I'm like,
How's it going? Another thing that our strategy in state government is to include the governor, as the governor says in a cabinet meeting, makes this go away.
You got your gray hair too. Those are the two you want there. It will probably end up being there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Boy, we know how to clear.
Yeah, to clear.
Were you worried they were all here for
You have to
the,
move your bag.
No, I saw that because I was inserted a little bit later, but yeah, I figured they were all here for that.
Move your bag. We have got a couple of things before that.
Yeah, we got an emergency order. We need to
Oh,
update.
yeah.
That shouldn't take too long.
So next.
I'm still seeing with this.
Consideration of adopting emergency order number 2024-02, which makes slight changes to emergency order 2024-1, which temporarily eliminates the requirement to obtain zoning permit or approval from the Developmental Review Board for certain activities in the flood hazard overlay district, including alterations to streams, including stream bank stabilization, channel management, or drainage swale.
I'm talking about swales. That's a mouthful. Quick update, the Mets are up 2-1. So I'd let you all know that.
The outside world.
Oh, do you want me to just fill you in on what's going on, or?
Do you want to, I mean, I gave him a quick, you want to give him the quick overview of why we're making the change?
Yeah.
Update?
Yeah, I mean, it really is to protect our NFIP status in the event, the unlikely event that we be audited during this time period. We left out the requirement that we need a permit for structures, either temporary or not temporary, accessory or principal. And we just wanted to add that word permit in there. That is really the only change.
Well, and then they have 90 days after the order expires to
90
get
days
that
after it
permit. So they
expires.
could still move quickly. They just need to get that permit to comply with NFIP after 90 days after the emergency order expires.
Which is December 31st, I believe.
It expires on December 31st, so they'd have until the end of March.
Yep. Obviously, we'll work with them, so that's really all that is.
Housekeeping seems straightforward. Motion to approve the amended emergency order 2024-02 as discussed.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion made by Bart Hill to adopt the emergency order number 2024-02, seconded by Jay Furr. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Aye.
Bart, aye.
David, aye. Wow.
Thanks, guys. Your credibility. So, aye.
So next we have review of and consideration of setting a date for a public hearing date for proposed zoning amendments, which would create two new zoning districts. The village residential neighborhood one and the village residential neighborhood south, which would be the new section 3.1.2 and amend section 6.1, 6.13, 6.14, and 7.
That's it.
That's action.
And we have 40 minutes.
Oh, I'll try to be really quick. I'm so sorry that it's already 9:20.
8:35.
But you can relax. This shouldn't be quite so difficult.
So I've had one request from a member of the public who thought the wording on this was confusing. So can we just give a quick 30,000 foot overview of why we're doing this and then jump in?
Oh, the wording of the
Warning.
warning? Oh, dear.
The warning.
Ah, we're trying to make it all.
I mean, you wrote like a 4-page memo on this. I don't know how to put that into a one agenda item.
I know. No matter how hard we try to do the right outreach, there's always something wrong with
Okay,
it.
we have 40 minutes.
Yep. Okay, could we have the map up there?
Sure.
We can start by looking at the map. I'm Virginia Clark of the Planning Commission, Chair of the Planning Commission. Keith,
Keith Oborn, town planner.
town planner. Yes, so we are proposing to make 2 new districts. We've been working on this for about 1.5 years. Our work has kind of been divided into 2 pieces. One was pre-Act 47 and the other was after Act 47, which made us doubly need to make some changes. So what we're looking at doing here is to separate out the village neighborhoods, both one in the north and one in the south, from their underlying districts, because now they have different requirements based on Act 47. They're in the water and sewer service area, so certain requirements apply to them. Also, the residents of these areas felt that they were special kinds of areas, village neighborhoods. They're different from the underlying residential areas, so they would like them to be identified and protected in certain ways. So we're looking at the yellow.
This one here with the circles.
Yep, Village Residential Neighborhood North. You can see it involves Tilden Ave, Baker Street, the Browns Court, Burnett Court, plus up the Jericho Road, which, as you recall, you separated out from the residential commercial that we were originally going to put it in because it had some commercial potential. But the residents really wanted to be considered part of the neighborhood. So there's that neighborhood in the village neighborhoods, plural, north. There's also the Pleasant Street, Lemroy Court area, and then the Church Street and Esplanade. So these are all neighborhoods in the village, walkable. The residences are fairly close together. And like I said, they have special requirements because of Act 47. So that's the village neighborhoods north. If we go down below to the south of the river, you can see that red kind of whatever that is.
This one here, right?
Matching.
Red circles.
Little circles. Yep. So this is the other part of the village neighborhoods, because we are promoting the concept that these are also walkable. They are part of the village. They go to the village businesses. So this area also, we are separating this area out from the ag res district. So they are very similar, these 2 districts, the yellow and the red circles, in the requirements, but we felt they were slightly different enough and they were coming out of different kinds of areas that they should have their own designation. So the south district you can see is Thompson Road, the lower part of Bridge Street, and then the residences along until you get to kind of the open area on Cochran Road. So
I have a
those are
dumb
the-
quick question.
Yes,
The where the red dot ends, is that where the 25-mile-an-hour zone ends?
this,
No, that's the water and sewer district boundary.
No, I'm talking about the shaded area.
No.
Is the whole water,
This area here, right?
yeah.
25, yeah, that's
Is it-
25.
I was just wondering why, like, the piece of property immediately abutting to the right that is in the water and sewer district is not shaded in red. I was just,
Cemetery.
That's a cemetery.
good point.
So, yeah.
So that is, and that is
So we
where the
didn't
speed
include
limit
all
signs are.
Okay.
They're at the
Use a little
cemetery.
water.
And across the road within that district is also conserved land.
And the people just further east, I guess we call that, than the cemetery. We talked to them about whether they would like to have their property because that's conceivably connectable to the water and sewer district. And it, would be a developable
Yeah,
area.
okay. Mhm.
They were not interested at all. They wished to remain in the ag res district.
Okay.
So we respected that.
Yep.
So,
All right, so question.
all right, any other questions about the map?
I
Yes.
find it difficult to see the floodplain.
Which one is
Yeah.
You have the floodplain and the floodway needs to be identified differently than the floodway differently than the floodplain. And I see the striping that you have going on. But when the striping is overlaying any other combination of prints, like right here,
Yes.
this is floodplain and you can't really tell that, as well as what's really floodplain up here and not just the difference of lines going.
Yeah, it gets messy.
It's really messy, so almost like you might want to consider shading, almost shading the parcels that are in the floodplain with the same print, but going darker.
Let's see what the
something like
mappers
that.
can do on that, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see the flood, you do see the flood way though, right?
The green
That's the
line.
green line.
Is the
This line,
floodway.
this aqua color line
Correct.
right there. Which really, if this floodway is different than that floodplain, should be delineated more than just that.
It should be
This
what?
delineated differently. It shouldn't just be the same stripes because the regulations in this area are vastly different than the regulations.
Yeah, but
up
it's
there.
all the flood hazard overlay district. That's what that's for.
The striping that
The striping
you've
is-
identified. So
right.
my point to you is
Yep.
I really think you need to identify it more clear than just that one line, this line here, because you might understand that line there, but not others.
Well, I
do.
think it's noted here though, floodway, green line, hazard overlay district in both of these is the hash.
Right, but people, your common person doesn't know that you're talking about these two lines are connected when you've got it as a square around a stripe.
Yeah, we can talk to regional planning. They did the maps. They do the mapping work. So we can talk to them and see what they have. And
Because it's a problem that you guys have often, that people are going, is it not?
Right.
Where is it not?
we might have to make two different maps, one for zoning purposes.
Yeah, and obviously we have the firm map
So,
now
yeah.
too, but they're, they're saying you don't even go there, I know.
Yeah, I've got all 20 of those numbers memorized.
Yeah, same here.
The overlay district might have its own map.
Yeah,
What has it overlay
that might be the
district?
way to go, is to have a separate map and reference that. Yeah.
Because
I
it
think that's a
really
good
makes,
issue.
like even you start to look at, is this a property line? Is it a different line? What's the line? How? It's,
It gets busy,
it's
yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really busy with that.
I don't
Thank you.
disagree.
I appreciate that. The other question I would have is, I know you're gonna get into all the details, but on the maps themselves, sometimes, properties that are being changed from an ag res into a now village zone. You guys just were talking about notifying Southview of a situation going on in Southview with actual mailings. What are you gonna do to people whose properties now are changed? Are you just going public? Oh, it was public, you should have been here. Oh, well, too bad for you. Versus now you're gonna send notifications out to everybody in Southview because they have a situation potentially going on, even to neighbors of people in Southview, like on Bradford Terrace, you're gonna send something. What are you gonna do for folks who are getting their zone completely changed?
Well, we're certainly going to obviously follow the legislative or statutes that we gotta go. I mean, that's what I gotta go with.
I'm gonna kick that can.
Yep,
That's not what I'm talking about.
I'm sure, and then
Decision.
the front porch forum, and the best we can do is the top of the line would be to send a letter to each individual property owner.
Well,
But we
And then
didn't
you're
have
gonna
to
get,
come
and then you're
in.
gonna get, I didn't get the letter.
you do when there's a change in assessed value of a property, and that potentially could impact the assessed value of the property. Because we know village property values per acre, the land value is higher than everybody outside the village. So now if you're putting parcels into a village, you're going to increase their land value instantly.
Yes, well, we did work with the neighbors, both the south and the north neighbors, quite a bit in the early days of this.
Right.
So,
Could be new owners, just like the new guy who just sat here.
yeah, well, it could be a new owner in a year and a half. That's
Right.
possible.
Yep.
So, yeah, well, we're always trying to improve the outreach because it's important. So we'll see what we can do. I don't know that
I'm not saying planning commission, I know you guys are gonna do all kinds of work. I'm just talking about when this gets kicked to the select board, it's their responsibility, not the planning commission's.
yeah. Yeah, it would be nice, Kara, at some point, if we could all have a discussion about what's the responsibility of the people out there to watch these things versus the boards. So anyway, but we don't want to do that right now because we only have 40 minutes.
Quiet here, but still, if I'm gonna get something in the mail that says my value's gone up, I should have got something in the mail that say
So
that
Virginia,
one of my values.
why don't you choose those colors?
What?
No. Just one.
Ahem.
Actually, you say Regional
So-
Planning Commission decides a lot of the format of things?
No, we consult with them, definitely.
Yeah, they
They have
do.
the software.
I'm sure
that
they- oh, yeah,
produce
yeah,
the
I'm
map.
sure they have
Yes, but
standard.
they produce the maps.
Right.
They have.
We go somewhere else
production.
in the town, they've got similar displays, you know.
Yeah, and if we
things.
said we didn't like the circles, but we wanted little boxes, I'm sure they would be able to do that, but you know. So, hopefully that's all the questions on the maps.
There you
Okay, so north is coming out at the HDR.
Keith, your laptop.
Mhm.
Is in the way.
Could
You're
pull it back
making a
in?
shadow. Pull your laptop back. You have a shadow on the projector.
It's on me again?
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
apologize.
So the HDR is that orange with the white dots, and that's all up in Southview and Hidden Pines.
Oh, let's go up there.
Hearing about.
It
We
almost
didn't
looks
we
like.
didn't want to get involved with that.
Thanks.
It's the same district, but not really the same neighborhood.
Right. It's all HDR, which is not really the
And it
high
really
density
is, like,
residential.
if you drive around, they feel, different parts feel different.
Mhm.
Yeah, true.
Yep. Larry
the same
Westall,
zone.
Larry
Maybe-
Westall. Okay,
We should
So-
talk about the districts that we're talking about.
the south is coming out of AR, the AR district, where the lots were bigger. Originally, 1 unit per acre. The HDR, you could put, it was like a third of an acre.
Mhm.
In some cases, so the lots were already a little smaller. After Act 47 came along, both of these new districts had to have a density of 5 units per acre, which meant the minimum lot size was 1/5 of an acre. That was statute from last July. So we had the neighbors all come back after Act 47 to understand that the lot sizes that they had wanted, which were a little bigger, weren't going to fly because we had to follow the statute. So the lot size had to be 0.2 acres, the minimum lot size. The density had to be 5 units per acre. So this caused us to change certain things about both the HDR underlying and the AR underlying. We made the setbacks a little bit smaller because if you're going to have a 0.2 acre lot, setbacks are probably going to have to be a little bit smaller. The lot coverage is going to have to be a little bit bigger. The lot frontage is going to have to be a little bit less, just so you could fit a dwelling on one of these small lots, if anybody wants it. Some of these lots are already that size, especially in the north. Many of the lots are even under 0.2 acres. So,
And the setbacks are less than zoning would currently.
yeah.
That's correct.
The setbacks are small. We did hear from residents both who wanted bigger setbacks and residents who wanted smaller setbacks. So we landed kind of in the middle on that with a compromise. The other thing that the neighborhoods wanted was them to be residential, these areas. So the number of commercial conditional uses allowed was reduced in both of these areas. These residences were very strongly attached to them being residential. So the uses are residential uses, single-family homes, ADUs, duplexes, multifamily homes. That was another thing that we were required to add by Act 47 was the ability to have 3 and 4 unit multifamily homes by right in these districts, which had not been desired by the residents of these neighborhoods, but it's the law since last July. So 3 to 4 family units will be allowed in both of these districts. And we have put into place some multifamily building use standards in order to make people feel more comfortable about having 3 and 4 unit buildings in their neighborhoods that we'll go over in a little bit. That's one of the other changes that we made besides creating these two districts. Are there any questions about the two districts themselves? Do you want me to go over every item? The features of them are residential neighborhoods. Residences are allowed. Very few businesses are allowed. Talked a little bit about the dimensional requirements. We also have the multifamily housing standards that will govern those 3 and 4 unit buildings. And a few standards relative to the site, like you have to put residential parking. You can only have one residential parking space, one parking space per residential unit. That is the required maximum required. You can, the developer can put more if they feel the need is there, but we as a municipality can only require one parking space per dwelling unit. That's in Act 47. Waste containers have to be at the side or behind. So
no dumpsters in the front yard.
No dumpsters in the front yard, a few site standards. So you had a question, Lisa.
Today it's making a dumpster joke. Yeah, what about ADUs? Jenny, is there an allowance for ADUs? I don't know where they're.
Yes. ADUs are allowed. Yep.
Okay.
And you will see, we will come to that when we are putting in a new section in the zoning that will apply to the whole zoning ordinance that is called residential density. And it talks about all of those things, like every single family home, no matter how small a lot is allowed an ADU. And we went round and round with this.
Is it possible to fit one on? I mean, actual livable space? Is it possible in some of
It
those
will be
lots?
small, presumably, if you have a 0.2 acre or less lot.
It has to meet lot coverage still, though.
It has to be what?
I mean, lot coverage is also
Lot coverage is an issue. We allowed a little bit more. You might be able to go up and put your ADU as a second floor on a 1-story building. It might not be able to be freestanding. It's going to be tricky if it's tiny.
I'm trying to picture it.
But it'll be small. So.
I have a sort of contextual question.
Yep.
Beyond some of the things you pointed out that are, we're obliged to do under Act 47 that people didn't want, well, we got to do that.
Yep.
What might we expect to hear from citizens, residents? Like, were there elements of controversy? Clearly, you described trying to hit a compromise in various things. Is there anything we should be sort of prepared to hear about? Like, I don't like X that's in the proposed changes?
Yeah. We sort of doubt it because we heard all those already and we made adjustments based on those. This, the fact that what Act 47 actually says is you have to make regulations that allow for 0.2 acre lots. They didn't say you have to have 0.2 acre lots. They say you have to make regulations that allow for it. So that includes, we felt, making the lot coverage a little bit more, making the setbacks a little bit smaller, making the road frontage required a little bit smaller. So we did have some people who felt that was going to change the nature of the neighborhood. We also had people who wished to, on their properties that already had a garage within the setback, wanted to put an ADU in it.
Yes.
So they wanted no setbacks. And also there are many places where 2 driveways butt up right together, right next to each other. There's no real setback there. So the other things, we mostly took the residents' wishes into consideration, like taking out the commercial uses. Both the HDR and the AR have more commercial uses allowed as CUs.
Yeah.
We did not hear anybody who wanted that. The people who came to talk to us wanted less.
Yeah,
They didn't want.
I think,
commercial
Martha, I think
uses.
the big controversy out of all of it is the density issue.
Yeah.
It's
way different than-
It's 8712 square feet.
But
That's not big.
No. Well, let me ask you this about, the garage thing, because I've heard several people say, hey, you know, I'd love to turn my garage into an ADU. It's an existing structure. It's probably doesn't meet current setbacks. Can somebody convert an existing garage on its current footprint to an ADU because it's an existing structure?
As written, no. You have to meet the setbacks. Because
Even
it's
though
a change
not
in
setback
use.
now,
It's a change
but
in
it's
use.
change in use.
Right, so you have an accessory structure that's turning into a dwelling unit.
So
So,
you could expect to hear about that, I think.
yeah, and now we can adjust. I don't think that's an issue. I mean, we have control over the dimensional aspects of how you develop. But that is a change in use, and it's not an accessory structure anymore. It would be a dwelling unit, which requires whatever the setbacks are for dwelling units.
And you're still allowed to put an accessory dwelling unit on that property. You just can't put it in, you just can't put it on top of the garage.
And that's sort of the impetus to skinny down the setbacks too, is to help with those situations.
Because it would appear to me subjectively, walking around like my neighborhood, there are a lot of places where it might actually be a majority of the houses.
It's ripe for a change.
So
in use.
I was
Yeah.
working on this with Keith in Virginia, and my biggest frustration was hearing people talk about how it would mess with the character of the neighborhood to reduce the setbacks. And the character of the neighborhood they were talking about were houses that had 0 setbacks. So, everyone's
Yeah.
favorite neighborhood houses were Robbie and Karina, which they're redoing,
Or, I mean,
Brody and Brittany, and the setback is 3 or 4 feet.
right.
And they share a driveway, and everyone's like, hey, see, it's great. And it's like, but they don't have the setback that you say you want.
So that's that language. I mean, if you have a pre-existing non-conforming structure, maybe we can allow for that change in use. You know, I mean,
That seems like a
that's-
reasonable compromise, because the
You
people,
know,
wouldn't make sense to tear the structure down.
it would be an opportunity lost, that's for sure, if you can't do that.
Because our affordable housing advocates wished to allow that,
Let that
you
happen.
know, everything, anything. Which makes sense but we're not the residents who live there. So the residents who lived there were against the density, and they had to go along eventually with the density, but you know, it was tough for them because they really felt something was being lost. So anyway.
Bonnie, you know, I've spoke about this before, about the affordable housing issue and the accessory dwelling units is the prime piece that we should be filling in here. I really want to push the planning commission and you all to put it in there that converting an existing non-complying structure to an ADU is allowed. Why in today's day and age where we are trying to be sustainable and not just trash everything and put it in a dumpster, would we destroy a perfectly good structure that can be converted into, you know, even just a loft style apartment and give us more affordable housing, because somebody can't afford to drop the whole thing, build the whole foundation differently, and totally construct a structure that's going to cost $100,000 more than being able to convert into an accessory dwelling unit. So I really want you to put that clause in there, because then it doesn't change the neighborhood, because that structure's always been there. It's not moving, it's not doing anything different other than converting it into living quarters, whether it's above it or below it. Or whether it's taking the roof off of a structure and going up to put an apartment above an existing garage. It's the same footprint, it hasn't changed. I'm very gonna push you hard on this. Because if you truly want to, the goal of Act 47 is increase the density in the villages where you have water and sewer and you need more users anyhow. That if you are prohibiting doing those kinds of things and you're making it more difficult to develop, you're never going to get more accessory dwelling units in the village, because you've limited it intentionally, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, it may depend on the numbers. I mean, how many of those are there versus the number of residents who don't have those and don't want the density?
Yeah.
So
This
it's a kind of a compromise.
If Bart's even got a shed that if he wants to convert into an ADU, the shed can be converted, because I don't know if you guys changed the ADU size. Well, I don't know,
1,000.
because the ADU issue that we had to go to the planning commission, at me and personally, when I put in the ADU, I had to have you guys change it from a percentage, because we have a small home, we wanted to put up a small ADU.
30% plus.
But it meant that the percentage that you had in place back there meant that they had, if I wanted to build it, accessory dwelling unit, it had to be smaller than your average shed.
Yeah, because if you have a 2,000 square foot house and 30%, it's 600 square foot, you know,
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
yeah,
so-
no, I hear you, yeah. But I mean, we do have that floor of 1,000 square feet, which is obviously 100 square
Right,
feet
so I
more than the
appreciate-
minimum. So,
Appreciate that change and I pushed hard for it.
yeah, I mean,
But my
like,
other concern that you guys mentioned that I'm gonna address is dumpsters not in the front. Well, if there's not a driveway around back, are you making them put a driveway in to keep a dumpster out of sight? I'm not, and I know we've got businesses that have dumpsters right out in front. Does,
right, so those are development standards, you know, right now, if somebody has a dumpster right out in front, we wouldn't be violating them for that, because it's pre-existing non-conforming, and that's not what we do.
but if somebody wanted to put an apartment in their garage and their dumpster is always right out front and they don't have a driveway out back, what does that kind of regulation mean for anybody trying to help us as a community have a ADUs and affordable housing?
I don't know, we can't game out every scenario, but I mean, that certainly would be the exception and not the rule. But it's definitely something that could happen, Karen, there's no doubt about
I
that.
mean,
It's an aesthetic thing.
Yeah, it is an
But
aesthetic.
Does that take care of it?
you can say no clotheslines and stuff like that too,
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to say no clothesline.
right?
It's against the law.
Well, I mean, where to put your dumpster if you don't have a driveway that goes out back?
That's where you live.
You have to have a dumpster.
Well,
I have a
Yes.
definitional question. Is a toter considered a dumpster for these purposes? And the reason I ask, in my neighborhood, there's lots of toters and virtually no dumpsters.
Do they come out just at collection time or do they live in the front of your neighborhood?
Yes.
They live in the front of your neighborhood.
Both.
Do you like that?
That, like, people do what they want to do.
That doesn't bother you? It doesn't?
I'm sure it bothers some people. Mostly they take them back and forth.
Yeah, well, we do say in here that you can put them out when it's time for them to be collected. The idea, I mean, and it's the whole point of having the multifamily housing standards is to make it an aesthetically pleasing place to live. So if everyone has a dumpster and toters living in their front yard all the time, is that desirable from a town, a village point of view where people are going to want to live? Or do we care that people do or don't want to live there? Do we care or not?
So I think I bring it up because this is an interesting thing, and there are streets in Burlington where you see them, they're out front all the time, 7 days a week. And then other places where they're back and forth. So it's just an interesting question.
Yeah, well,
About,
it's it's up to people, I guess, what it is they want, what they want the appearance to look like. Do you want it to look like
This is what we're offering.
a pleasant neighborhood? We allow you to put them out. I don't imagine that if you put them out and there's somebody on your street who leaves them out a lot longer, that they're gonna be after you because they have better things to do, but.
well, here's a question,
Yeah.
and I don't want to go down this blind alley too far, but so to Kara's point, there's not really a place to put them. It's an older person, and it's such a hassle to move the stuff back and forth. Could they build like a little shelter?
Public right of way.
So, yeah, then it's this thing of like, is there a way to put, and some of these are not permanent structures, the toter's not permanent, the little like, the plastic thing that you stick them in is like, you can move it by hand.
Do most people have dumpsters for their trash? Is that something that people have?
It's really common.
Yeah, we're not right.
Multi-unit is all I'm thinking. If the multi-unit driveway is right there, how does the dumpster go around the building if the driveway doesn't? I'm just thinking multi-units, if anything becomes like a Victorian house gets converted.
For the multi-unit buildings, they can have an enclosure. That
An enclosure.
prevents the visibility. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's in the multifamily housing standards. That is not offered as an option for single-family homes or duplexes that we have a dumpster living in your front yard. You can have it in construction, obviously, if you're changing your roof or something, then you could have the dumpster. But
I just envisioned dumpsters being at the end of a driveway. That was all. And if the driveway's in the front of the building, because you're driving up to the front of the building and you're in a village, driveways don't usually go around the back of any.
people usually have dumpsters in villages in their personal yard?
I don't have one now. I feel left out.
I don't want one now, though. I just have a dumpster that I throw kids' toys in, but.
You really don't think they would have it, why do you have to regulate it?
Right, that they won't have it so that the person who lives in the village right now, who has a dumpster in the front yard, doesn't have it in the front yard.
Yeah.
I have a question about the duplex thing. So remember,
Yep.
this is, as it stands right now, like every building, every lot in these areas is allowed a duplex.
Well,
So we're gonna limit, is it,
Gonna talk
every
about
lot
that.
gonna be allowed a duplex, or is it going to be every lot over 0.4 acres is gonna have a duplex?
4 acres, because duplexes do count as
So that's a
two
pretty
dwelling
big
units.
reduction in the amount of housing capacity that could potentially be developed downtown. I went out and did counted all the lots that have under 0.4 acres that would be allowed to have a duplex now that will not be allowed to, and it's not including lots that already have a duplex, 77 units that are allowed to be built out now that wouldn't be allowed to be built out.
It's the mandate. I mean, it's 8712. I mean.
The mandate, no, the mandate is that that's the maximum you can require. It's not the mandate is not 8712. The 8712 is the maximum you can require.
No, you could have smaller lots,
So we
but they
could
do
allow,
count
you could
as
allow,
two dwelling
could allow
units.
every lot to be allowed minimum of a duplex. No matter what, like it is now.
Every lot can have a single family dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit.
But that's not
But
the
that's
same.
counted as
That's
one
have to-
unit.
Counted as one unit.
That's not the same though, because you have to live in one of
Dwelling
those. It's a fundamentally different. The
Hmm.
one has to be smaller, it has to be subordinate to the other. A duplex is a fundamentally different thing that's
Right.
allowed right now.
So if you count a duplex, if you abide by counting a duplex as 2 units, then you would have to make the lot size.
Yes, that's my
smaller.
point, is there's 77 unit lots right now that are allowed to have 2 units that would now no longer be allowed to have 2 units if we don't change that. There's 77 lots that are under 0.4 acres that under the current zoning would be allowed to build a duplex that will not be allowed to build a duplex. which is
I
changed.
don't believe that's true. I don't believe you
I mean,
can
I
build a
do.
duplex.
You can. What do you
If
mean?
it's less than whatever the current zoning is?
Yeah, if it's an existing non-conforming lot, you are allowed to develop it to a permitted use. That's a thing. I've done it myself. That's a thing. So if you have a 0.25 acre lot right now, a permitted use, a duplex is a permitted use, you're allowed to put a duplex on that lot.
So I'll research
Because we
that.
don't have any density in our zoning right now.
Well, you do have density in your zoning. That's a misnomer. Your density is what your.
So you're saying that every lot that's on town water and sewer in these districts is 0.66 acre zoning right now. It's 2/3 acre. So that's pretty much everyone's non-conforming then. So there shouldn't be any duplexes downtown for the current zoning.
Yeah, well, I think we're gonna have to
But
talk
they're
about that because I'm
pre-existing.
not.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that my understanding and how it's been permitted in the past is that you can, if it's an existing non-conforming lot, you can put a permitted use on it.
Well, that's.
And so
wrong.
if we change that, I mean, that's wrong. That's what the town's done.
I know.
That's what's
yes,
created
right.
housing. So we're saying that we're going to redo the zoning. We're going to decrease the amount of housing, whether it's wrong or not. It's counter to the entire point of the Act 47.
All this being said, the actual item of business on our agenda tonight, besides
Set a
reviewing,
public
is to
hearing,
set a date. And at this point,
This is
many of the
making me feel
questions that we are
comfortable with it.
discussing can be discussed at that hearing.
That's true.
Yes.
Right.
So I would like to, if we can,
Yep.
go ahead and address the question of the date.
So can I just interject? So
Yeah.
can we put this on, because I think the question of duplexes, when I walk around some of these neighborhoods and a house that is big enough for 2 units
Yeah.
and is currently 1 unit and changing it to 2 units, to your point, is remodeling the interior. It doesn't change the footprint, lot coverage.
Mhm.
So you can build it in the same unit, the same envelope.
Mhm.
And so if we go from saying under current rules, you could take that same envelope and put 2 units, and then under the new rules, you can't do that. It has to maintain 1 unit. That does seem, to your point, to be.
If that's the case, then that means if you have a 0.17 acre lot, you're not allowed to put an accessory structure because it's
Yeah, well, the
existing.
question is why you're
non-conforming.
allowed to do it now, but
Development.
anyway.
It doesn't make any sense.
Well, why wouldn't you be allowed to do it?
Mr. Chairman.
So that's what I think you should be prepared to do with.
Yes,
I think
we
this.
can talk about that, and
The same building envelope is a profound one.
all of
Good
the
question.
planning entities currently recommend that you do away with any density requirements. And we did try to sell that at the planning commission, but it didn't go over well.
Well, it's.
So that you get rid of, and you just allow lot coverage and all that to and setbacks to say what you can put in
Mr.
there. that
Chairman,
There
I
be
move
no
to set a
density.
hearing date of Monday, October 7th at 7 p.m. Consider amendments to the Richmond zoning regulations, which would create 2 new zoning districts, Village Residential Neighborhoods North, new section 3.11, and
Well,
Village
we'll talk
Residential
about this
Neighborhoods
later.
South, new section 3.12, and amend section 6.1, 6.13, 6.14, and 7.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bart. Motion made by Jay first, seconded by Bart Hill. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, aye.
Lisa, aye.
Bart, aye.
Jay, aye.
David, aye.
Thank you.
Do you want to talk about any of the other associated amendments, or you don't really care about those right now? We'll talk about them at the public hearing. You can read the stuff. It's all in here.
Mhm.
New residential density, which, you know, blah, 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 new definitions.
Did we allow
Send me
Zeppelin
an
hangers under our current zoning?
Yeah, let's just chat about like.
Did we allow Zeppelin hangers? Like, if we want to build a hanger for like a balloon?
Toddlers, Keith.
Is that allowed?
Um,
The question I have is, this is a really good discussion, and I am a firm supporter of duplexes, especially like first floor, one apartment, second floor, different apartments. Sometimes it needs a little addition to get the stairs to go right, to go upstairs, so you might need a little bit of a non-conforming situation to be expanded by a certain percentage, which used to be able to be happening in the village before. Because I know I've seen permits for that, it's been part of decisions on that. I want to make sure that when this gets kicked to a public discussion, it's not locked into, because this is the way the draft is, we're gonna just keep pushing this forward. Because if we truly want this to be successful, to encourage additional housing through the village, we need to make sure what Adam is saying is accurate. And it is promoting what we want to promote, how we want to promote it.
One thing I'll say is that one of the review process I was involved in when I was in the planning commission, there was a lot of public feedback, and the planning commission addressed all of it, and the draft was not locked in. And I don't think that has changed. I think Virginia.
No, well, and
very willing to change that.
this is the select board's hearing. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, the
with
planning
it.
commission approved it. and that
So,
was it. I mean,
this is
that's
what
totally
we
autonomous.
decide
You can
and-
kick it back to us, we'll redraft it, do whatever you want.
Like the RC district, you know, you
Yeah.
had some changes, you
Exactly.
kicked it back and we worked on
building a
it some more,
zoning
so, yeah.
My point
On your birthday.
It's a hearing, but you could have kicked something back to them tonight as well. So you've chosen to go to the hearing the next step. I mean, they're doing a lot of work. They're doing a heavy lift, don't get me wrong, but there's just a couple of
I
tweaks.
think there's a lot of public comment that will come. from
Exactly.
people.
Yeah, I mean,
In the-
there
in the
may be
hearing.
people who are on the other side of that question, so. That's the point of the public hearing. This is not a public hearing, so we're not hearing from all the public who might come and talk about
And
it.
for better and worse, we get different people showing up, sometimes saying different things at the public hearing than you got at the planning commission.
Yes.
And you don't have to make any decision.
you're under
You
no
can kick it
obligation.
back
That's it.
and we'll
So-
talk about it some more.
Kick it back to us and we'll work on it and bring it back to you.
Okay.
So when's that park stuff
For
gonna
all
be?
your work on that.
What?
When's that park stuff gonna be done? Volunteer screen.
Oh.
Soon.
That's what we said.
Virginia.
Great answer.
When is that park stuff gonna be done?
Oh, 2025.
That's what, that was it. That was the commitment, right? November 1st, 2025.
Yes.
And if all these things aren't done by 2025, we give it up and talk about the town plan, because that's important.
Yeah. So we're not gonna ram it through, I mean, obviously, so.
Yeah.
No.
Next, we have the Cochran Road corridor and.
Hey, Virginia,
Yeah, thank you.
Virginia.
All right.
Here, I got something for you. Right there.
Right.
Better.
Cochran Road scoping.
That's what I've been saving for you.
Yeah, so
You know who it's for.
we have an update that landed in June, and obviously some things have happened between then and now. And it kind of fell off. And right now, we're looking for an advisory entity at this point. And I had spoken to that back in June also, and you know, it's been a challenge to say the least. I've been talking to Jason, the engineer at CCRCP. We want to move this forward, but we need an advisory body. My suggestion, in lieu of an ad hoc committee, which is really would move things forward quickly, To get another member for the Transportation Board Committee would not move things quickly. Having this board as the advisory committee to be the public body that would handle this one issue would be my suggestion for you folks to do that. And I could relay that, and we can set a hearing for WSP, who is a consultant, to come in and give a briefing, and let's go from there.
Mr. Chairman, that makes sense to me, as he says. Getting a working transportation committee together could take a while. I know we all love to have more things put in our calendar and more responsibilities, but I don't really see an alternative.
Yeah.
It could be during a normal select board meeting too, right? I
Right.
mean, these aren't long updates.
No, there should not be long updates, but there is a public comment issue here that needs to be satisfied. So that could take time. But one thing I can promise you is that things will be tight and given to you on a silver platter as best we can.
We just start earlier or run later.
Yeah, we'll start at
Yes.
6.
I'm
One,
sorry, I'm
two, or
confused
five.
with what this was, Keith, I apologize, I pitched it facing that way, I didn't quite get. You're bringing this, what is this, the study that they did on Cochran Road?
No, it's a scoping study right now, so we don't have an advisory committee to keep that study going forward
Okay.
because of the
It's the
limitations.
full length of Cochran Road, though.
Yeah, well, it's the two nodes, and then in between, there's a bit of a study that goes on in that. The document's online, it's very concise, they've done a really good job.
Water
with
and
that.
sewer in well.
So it's just who they have presented to is what you're.
Exactly, in order to move it forward.
Thank
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need a motion or anything?
No, I don't.
That was what
Just-
the board.
You guys are.
Let's just
Good
schedule
enough for
them.
me, I can get back and we'll get you on the
Committee
agenda.
of last resort.
All right. Thank you.
Discussion of bonuses for town staff due to flood-related work. I do know that some town staff have been working 30, 40 hours a week extra, not getting compensated due to storm-related work.
He's giving me a Mets update, how badly they're beating the Red Sox tonight for the second night in a row. So
winning?
the Mets, well, they're playing the Red Sox, who are just, as my son would say, they're selling their season, which is parlance for you're folding and totally doing a terrible job in your game or your season since the All-Star break.
Is there
That's
like
what the middle schoolers
Is
call
there a
it.
rivalry here? There's a reason Keith's giving an update is because they're winning. If he was losing.
Well, if they were losing, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
show.
Okay.
Some
I like
rub
he's
against.
a Mets fan, but yeah, the Red Sox, I was still holding on. But they've just been,
It's life in my team, you're done.
they've been tanking since the All-Star break, and it's just not looking good. So anyway, let's move on to
It's a rebuild of your job.
So
Okay, so about
on the flood.
I will say, full disclosure, this was just an idea that several people have had, including me, and I'm partly informed. I carry both the burden and benefit of my past experience in state government, where as a supervisor and a supervisee, I had opportunities for modest and occasionally significant bonuses to people for, above and beyond the call of duty kind of thing. So I don't know how other people view it. My understanding of the evidence in HR research is that financial, like salary increases, bonuses have a significant short-term impact. And so one of the things you try to do is do more things that are maybe less significant, but more frequent as a kind of reinforcement paradigm. It's got some complexity, so I don't know if it's a good idea. It was just a concept more than a idea.
One thing that jumps out at me is that some of the people who really busted their butts during the flooding now work for the town of Heinsberg.
Yeah.
Well, there's that.
There's that. So we can't directly give them a bonus as part of their paychecks. We can obviously write them checks. My thought is a little along these lines. Last year, after the fun we had in the summer, we had a big employee picnic, which at the end of the day, most of our employees did show up at. Now, it's not as, I think, given a choice between a picnic and $500 in their paycheck, I know what they prefer, but it's a little more, it settles the question of how do we handle people who didn't help with flood response? We just make it a thing for the whole employee base as a way to say thank you for all your hard work and all the ways you do it. As opposed to trying to say this person deserves a bonus, but this person didn't respond. And it just gets really messy when we're trying to say who really deserves it.
What if we write letters of recommendation or of commendation that go in the personnel file, and then at review time, it takes the calendar and puts calendar in between it.
That could be an additional thing we do, sure.
Well, we could do that too, but
Yeah.
it's a little more private too. And we don't have to debate it publicly. We don't have to even debate it. Whoever gets a letter of commendation may not get anything for it because they've already got something for a bunch of other things, or they may get a lot, but that happens some other time. But they also get something to get from the select board. You know, we would sign them, I presume.
So one of the other things I'll say about the principles of reinforcement or reward is that you want to make the reward or reinforcement close enough to the event that you're rewarding or reinforcing that people connect it.
Right. And
Versus like it takes 6 months to decide, remember the thing you did last year?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. That is,
Mhm.
I have one other stupid question. When is Rebecca's last day?
It's a good question.
I mean, it has
It's
nothing to do with,
coming up.
has nothing to do with flooding, but if we were to have a town employee event, recognizing her for her many years of service would be something else we could roll into that.
Karen?
I've got some questions. Are we talking bonuses for everybody who worked over a certain number of hours?
We don't know,
and
Kara.
hour-
We don't know yet.
I understand that. So this is
Okay,
why I'm
good.
putting some questions out there for you that I assume you don't know the answers to, since this is
There you
an
go.
open discussion for the first time, I hope. And it wasn't pre-decided before the meeting, so I appreciate that.
Mhm.
So the question is, are we talking, first of all, anybody who's left Richmond would not qualify. You don't pay somebody after they leave a bonus. That's not how it works. And if you want to do that, then I'd have issues with that for sure. Recognizing people who are still here, is different. But if somebody is hourly and getting paid overtime for the extra hours versus somebody who is salary, who might not be getting paid overtime, but might be getting compensation hours, because then you used to do that. I don't know if you still do that. Like if they worked during the winter for snow events, then they were banking some comp hours that they could take off during the summer. Do you still do that at all, or has that gone away?
So for road checks, they get 2 hours of overtime, 2 hours of comp time to be used at a future date. For general overtime, there's still the option to either take a time and a half or take comp time at a future date. So there's options.
So you're recognizing them financially and getting reimbursed if it's a FEMA event, getting reimbursed for some of those funds, right?
Correct.
So now you're thinking you want to recognize some folks because of, first of all, you're not going to recognize everybody. I mean,
Right.
if somebody was just doing their regular job and put in a few extra hours, that's one thing. But if somebody's working twice their hours, they're getting compensated for it financially and for comp time. But now you want to compensate them again for it financially. And that's probably not going to be reimbursed by FEMA.
Nope.
So I'm just trying to connect all these dots and say Jay's idea of throwing an event for them, a thank you event, and maybe Lisa's thing with putting something in their file, because for those who actually, it's not, everybody doesn't get a cookie for showing up when you didn't show up. We're not mailing you the cookie at home. You know, that's, I guess my point is I do like to recognize people when they step up and go above and beyond.
Well, to respond to Kara and to reinforce my idea, I do think an employee recognition meal of some kind would give us a chance to recognize Rebecca, and I think that would be something that, irrespective of the flooding, I think that something recognizing her for her many years of service would be appropriate anyway. And I'm thinking this could just kill two birds with one stone. But that's just me.
It's a good idea.
All right. I just started with a concept like, let's do something.
Yeah.
You know, and we could land on that. Let's do like, you know, a mutual sort of select board shows up. Thank you for your work, you know?
But I do like Lisa's thing. If somebody has gone above and beyond,
I think
let you recognize it in writing to them.
I think if you ask most people, they've maybe got something like that once in their lives or never.
Yeah.
And it's pretty memorable. I know it for a fact, but it's,
I think they're complementary ideas.
Yeah, both, all of the above, shower them with.
It's within your purview. to do.
Anything but cash.
So we could take everyone on a whitewater rafting trip. That's so fun. Yeah. That wasn't my idea. That was some of the fire department guys. Like, what have we done in the past? He goes, I don't know. You could bring everyone for whitewater rafting to thank them. It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah. I think it was a little tongue in cheek. Yeah. No, I think I mean, I know in the fire department, none of us, I know I personally don't expect any bonus, and I would turn down any bonus being part of this group. And then department, obviously, but I don't think I think it would be appreciated, but I don't think any of the guys expect it. I think something just acknowledging that, I mean, a lot of the guys are up for 24 hours without sleep, something acknowledging it, and dinner or lunch or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just acknowledgement is 99% of the battle.
Money is probably the least sincere thing that can be.
Yeah, especially for that group. And that's a pretty unique group compared to the road crew. I mean, the road crew, it is their job.
Find a date for the taco truck thing worked really well last year.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So
And we, all 5 of us showed up last year.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Showing up.
You know, if you really wanted to win them over, you could do it not on town land so they can all drink beer, but you know, it's pretty disheveled right now.
Rentstone Corral for the day.
I think the bonuses would be cheaper.
Well, it's not an outlandish idea, like, it's not, not like the town's gonna buy them beer, but if some places
they can buy their own,
where they buy their own, that's not an outlandish proposition after hours.
And it might make it a little more attractive than just come sit on the library lawn and have a taco. But there's nothing wrong with tacos. I like tacos.
I like tacos sound great too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think McKee's, with the guys I hang out with in the fire department, I think McKee's might be more the jam, but
Or I'm thinking I think there's a function room in the back of Big Spruce too, because all those other restaurants, you'd have to sort of like close down in some respects, unless they had a space that could just be for 30 of us. We can look into some ideas.
Yeah, sometimes they'll do,
maybe
private function.
Yeah, like private in the back. Even Stone Corral could just maybe rope off half of their place and say,
maybe one of the
"Here's your
restaurants
spot, here's a
really
buffet.
appreciates us.
Yeah.
Have at it."
Yeah.
Could be, that'd be less logistically involved than the taco truck too, which I know.
It does.
It was good,
It
but
does seem hypocritical to thank everyone, including Josh, for putting all this extra work in by asking them to put all the extra work into plan something.
You get two.
Do we factor?
I like how that worked out.
We give them a letter of accommodation for putting in the work to plan.
honestly, last year Duncan did like 99% of the taco truck organization, and I thanked him very much for doing all of that because he pulled all those things together, did a great job. So
Linda brought her dog.
Linda brought her dog.
And you brought your dog, didn't you?
Yeah, Linda took care of it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't think Linda has a
devolved
dog,
really
she's cats, but okay. Anyway, okay, yeah, we'll work on something.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Discussion and review of benefits provided to town staff.
So you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Taco truck, what more do they need?
Taco Tuesday.
You got one in Heinsberg, is that it?
so as many of this group knows, we haven't had a public update. We did lose 3 staff members from the highway department in the last 2 weeks. Our assistant highway foreman took a job as foreman in Heinsberg, which I think, makes sense as a career advancement. But there were also 2 equipment operators, so 2 plow truck drivers that left the highway department for jobs in Heinsberg as well in the last 2 weeks. We attempted to counter, it wasn't for a ton more money, and we attempted to counter for similar money, at least for the 2 equipment operators. Dylan was, I think, going to go because he had a
Big bump in
salary, new responsibility, career advancement.
Promotion.
But the other 2 said, well, even with trying to match the salary, it wasn't really going to work because there were some other benefits from Heinsberg that were attractive. So let me just make some, I had some notes. So they were looking at, they indicated other benefits also factor. Wait, did I not make notes on that? I didn't make notes. No, I did. Sorry. It's getting towards 10 o'clock. It's 10:12. So they looked at, there's some bonuses that were offered. The healthcare opt-out is different. There's health insurance options paid by the town and the employee were different. Vacation leave time, I think also healthcare covers domestic partners. In Richmond, we've just traditionally covered spouses. So these are some changes that I think would require some board consideration and approval. So I'd like to reach out to GovHR, which conducted the wage and compensation study a couple years ago, to see if they could update for us. I don't want to react just to Heinsberg. I want to look at, well, what are the comparable set doing? What's the average? What would a suggestion be for changing some of these opt-out numbers, or some of the bonus, some of the benefits. So I did ask Rachel, who did the study for us last year. She put a ballpark of around $3,500 to do that work, which to me seems fairly reasonable. So I'd like to move.
Would that be just for the, that's not just for highway?
No, that would be for the townwide. And they would look at, rather than just looking at Heinsberg, we had a comparable set that we actually used 2 comparable sets. They came up with a set of municipalities that were similar municipalities.
Not necessarily in Chittenden.
Not necessarily in Chittenden County. And then we asked them to do everyone in Chittenden County as well. So I'd ask them to do both data sets and then come back with recommendations on, hey, the average opt-out for insurance is this. Here's what we think you should do. Or vacation time is this. Here's what we think you should do. So I think it could be helpful to, we just did the compensation study. I think we did a good job. We've continued to keep up with it the last 2 years by keeping up with cost of living. But now I think we're, and this could be just a specific pressure point where Heinsberg was short staffed. They went for it.
Yeah.
They got a couple of our staff members, but I'd like to sort of follow up and see just to follow up on the backside here. Pete has already hired 2 people to move forward.
Where did they come from?
Not other town highways.
Okay.
Which Pete was very proud of, that he wasn't just going and picking.
Right.
He found some other applicants that have some transferable experience. I think one of them does have a CDL already, so he's probably pretty good to go. The other one could probably get there. We'll have to put him through a class to do that. It's a couple of $1,000.
I thought we could do that training in-house.
So we used to do that training in-house, and then the rules changed, and now they have to have a special class. So I'll propose that we pay the $4,000 to train somebody, and we'll work on keeping them. But so Pete's already starting to refill as we enter into winter time.
Josh, quick question. Do we do exit interviews? I mean, as a habit? Or
We kind of
is
did
it
on this.
Yeah,
personnel item?
yeah. I've already talked to one of the people who's leaving to try to get some ideas. Is it?
That's informal, however you want to do it.
Yeah,
It helps.
and especially if it's a department head, I always talk to the people. But what's that?
If they hate their boss or hate the job, whatever.
They're trying to see if there's other factors there.
In this case, it was, the sense I've always gotten is that the highway department has really been very much like family. I mean, they've been tight. They've stayed with us when they could have gone elsewhere for more money. But,
they work. Oh, man,
but Dylan was given a promotion and quite a bit more money. And then the other 2,
they just going to get Pete's job anytime soon. So
I don't think they left because of culture. I think that they left because of, as Josh was saying, certain benefits.
Yeah, it's an easy move. It's not that far. It's not a.
So when you have your little town managers convention luncheon things, tell Todd to knock it off.
So, and I would just observe that, it seems to me that the workplace labor market has become a bit more dynamic than it used to be in terms of what people are doing. When I talk to like human service nonprofits, they're doing stuff that they wouldn't have thought of doing 5 years ago. And one of the things younger people really want is more flex time. So that's like a more challenging thing to measure. And for some of these things, you can't really do that. But I think it's worth looking at this. It used to be if you do it every 5 years, that's fine. Maybe every 5 years is not adequate anymore.
Karen?
Does the highway department possibly left not necessarily because of the compensation study that you're going to relook at now? It's been 3 years. I think you did it. You said the last 2 years you've been kept up on cost of living, and it was the year before that. What I'd like to see in that study, if we're going to spend money on it, is I want you to, by position, do a cumulative total of the past 3 years compensation increases, because I think some positions, once you total them all up, have gone up 40% in 3 years. So when we look at a compensation study, it's for the purposes of giving everybody across the board a potential pay increase, or else why bother doing it? If you're looking at it for the purpose of seeing what benefits you can have instead of increasing compensations, or
maybe you give more money, because the younger the person is, the more money they want, the less they care about the medical benefits if they don't have medical issues, because when you're starting out and trying to get a home and trying to get established and stuff like that, you can't eat a benefit. So that's what I'm trying, if we're gonna really look at those kinds of pieces of the puzzle, I wanna see total compensation increases as a full percentage number by position. Because you all didn't believe me in some of the numbers that I rattled off last year, and they're factual. So I want you to see the true total number by position for the last 3 years of all cost of living, compensation increase, whatever you want to label them, combined together as a total.
I know I hear, this is a side, but I hear my wife vent about this. She does HR for Land O'Lakes, and everyone's expectation of flex time and comp is changing. But she works in a lot of people are factory workers. I have a construction company. I had the same critique of my employee, like, oh, I want flexible time. And it's like, well, we work from 7 to 3:30. So like, you can't flexibly hammer nails from somewhere. So
Yeah,
it is tricky. And there are certain jobs where it's very possible. And I think that further, in her experiences, it further drives a wedge between office and not office when you go that way. So obviously we don't have any data yet, but when we do get there, there's some tough decisions about if we let everyone that's not a road guy have flex time and work from home and do all that stuff, and it might make them more effective, but it splits.
And if we could schedule snowfall to be a little bit more convenient, like not in the middle of the night.
Exactly.
Not first thing in the morning when everybody's trying to get to work.
Right.
But thank you. I don't want you to lose staffers, but I think the loss of them they went all to the same department, so it wasn't like they were being farming out to all different other towns. There was a reason they all went.
I think it's worth doing though.
Yeah, I think get some
info on it. Yeah.
too, is
Maybe we are off, maybe we're doing great and it was a fluke, who knows, but we don't know until we get some info.
Yeah, that's what I want to find out. All right.
Okay. Yeah, it's impressive that Pete found 2 people that fast.
Yeah, so the compensation
knows
will be okay.
Pete knows
Well,
everybody.
yeah, or
We haven't met the
you
guys
might be a
yet.
better salesman than that.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, it could, it could be too that the other 2 left because, hey, they like Dylan too. And like, maybe they want to help out something new. So that's why I want to get more data than just what Heinz was offering to see, is there a larger trend that we're not keeping up on? So I think it'd be helpful. All right.
Well, just out of curiosity, which position has Pete not hired for? Did he hire the 2?
He hired
labor position?
2 equipment operators. He's got an idea for a promotion for the other position.
Cool. So that would open up, like he would be trying to hire another equipment operator.
Yeah,
So
that's basically where it would end up being. He's got a guy that knows a lot about the business already. So
cool.
Well, tell Pete, thank you, Josh, from the community.
Of course. Yeah.
Fill in those positions.
No, Pete, and believe me, Pete thanks himself because winter is long and dark and cold with the short staff and highway. But I will pass along your thanks as well.
I always tell Pete, leave the keys under the mat.
Okay.
Okay, discussion of traffic signal at the intersection of Bridge Street and Route 2.
Am I the only one who enjoyed the beeping?
Yes.
I didn't ever heard it.
So-
I'm joking.
No, but I was very concerned on Front Porch Forum. I mean, if it's just too loud, that's one thing. But it has to be there for people who are visually impaired.
So there's, I guess, a few things on the traffic signal. So Kara, you asked, I think it was last week, about could we adjust the green signal down Bridge Street? So I asked V-Trans about that because all summer I think it was fine, but now kids are going back to school. So the first week of school brought a lot more traffic, and we were hoping that left-hand turn arrow was going to solve all our problems.
It did.
It didn't. So V-Trans got back. The person who
Bigger risk.
So the person who does the signal said that they were going to extend the green. They extended the green, I think, as of Friday. But still this morning, I was out driving back and forth to the school at 7:30, 7:45. The backup was still there. We have also had the question about the beeping, as you mentioned, is ADA, so people can find the crosswalk button, and you need to have some sort of audio to hear that. And we talked about that with them when they first put the signal in. And they adjusted a little bit, and also like the sound when you hit the button was really low. It's like walk, and you're like, we need that a little louder. So I think there's some adjustments in general that could be done. So I'm going to suggest that we meet with a couple of the V-Trans representatives and maybe myself and one select board member on site to go over, okay, how does the left-hand arrow work? What do the sounds sound like? How loud are they? When do they go on? How long is the green? And just sort of come up with a punch list of here's what we all agree that we see, and here's some solutions we can have.
7:30 Thursday morning.
I got a question.
I
for
hear you.
The no parking zone along Route 2?
So that's a separate issue.
Well, V-Trans said they were gonna stripe that wide part of Route 2, and they never
I
have.
don't know if they said they were gonna stripe
I-
it. They said
I
they were
heard
gonna
that.
put the no parking signs in.
Well, the signs are up. Nobody knows what they mean.
So-
There's 3 vehicles there.
So signs are up. I
I'm gonna ask
agree.
Chief, I'll go ticket them.
I talked to-
Tickets, just give me the book.
So
They,
So I don't know if there was actually ever a promise of striping. I think there was a promise of the no parking signs.
I had heard the
Back at
engineer
it.
say it was going to be striped,
yeah,
designated as a no parking zone.
but they're gonna put the final coat of asphalt on. They haven't done
Okay,
that.
I'll double check on the
Some here.
striping. I also followed up with our chief this morning to ask, because I've noticed there's been some cars parked there.
Well,
in
one of
blatant
them
disregard for the sign.
works at Umiak.
Okay.
So he doesn't want to park out back
Right.
because that's customer spot. So he parks in the no parking zone
And-
every day.
That's a pretty easy person to get in touch with.
Yeah. And then, of
Uh,
course, the transit bus for the medical people or the community bus sees him park there. They park right behind him.
Okay, so if there's some frequent,
Yeah.
if there's some people that are known quantities.
Yeah.
who work right there and they're frequently doing, I think we can reach out to them
And
directly.
to be
'Cause-
fair,
I'll get
there's
you
like
the
5
license
parking
number.
spots there that were there for decades.
Right, and now they're
All of a
not.
sudden they're gone.
So that's where I thought, I think.
There's no other parking for those people. Like Umiak doesn't have parking for them to park at.
Yeah.
That car can't park anywhere and they have customer parking still.
Oh, boy.
Like we took away their parking spots and same for that apartment building. They have like, they have the minimum 6 spots. It works fine because they had parking and we took the parking away.
Yeah.
So as much as ticketing those people, it's like, that
I'll
doesn't
tell you
solve the
what, I'll tell you
problem.
what,
though.
try pulling out of the church lot or.
Oh, yeah, I
It's-
agree, but I mean,
It's dangerous.
we
There's already been a
we
wreck
did
there.
take away like 6 spots that have been there for decades and all of a sudden they're like,
We're sick.
it was like, I mean, depending on if
Yeah.
if MJS didn't park his truck and trailer there, it was like 5 or 6. Mike does, it's 1 truck, 1 trailer, so.
Across the driveway.
Question I have about the striping, if you're gonna talk to, I know they haven't done the finish coat yet, but you know how they did lines all the way down, East Main is there any reason why we don't actually designate parking spots like they do in all the rest of the cities that have on-street parking with like the little T that says, okay, here's 1 spot, here's 2 spots.
Between like the light and the fire department kind of, not the fire department,
Yeah, on.
but Agio's there, yeah.
So, because I mean, you've got where they, in some of those, front of some of those houses, the white line is narrowed up and vehicles are standing on the outside of the white line if. Maybe it's just the way they paint
And
it.
it's the same
The
thing, we
question is-
put in new sidewalks and did all this and we narrowed everything up and now there used to be parking everywhere and there's not parking anymore, so.
Yeah.
so,
Right.
how we did that.
They narrow the lanes to create bike paths on the rest of Route 2, so why can't we just have designated parking spots? Like, to look like if it's aesthetically pleasing and it's safer.
I think one of the concerns when we talked about parking stalls, I know we talked about them over by Umiak, was if we did that, it would actually like shorten the amount of cars you could put in there because you'd have to be a certain distance from intersections and you couldn't paint those lines. Now it's a little fudge factor, so people are a little closer. We're not really going to ticket them. But if there was stalls there, it would actually shorten, you'd lose parking spaces. But we didn't examine it for the whole Route 2.
That was my concern, is
I don't-
like going all the way up,
Yeah.
that it's just this white striped line, and so people don't, are you supposed to park there? You're not supposed to park there.
I
Well,
think you're right.
if
You know,
can
there's
get
this.
If you can get off the road behind the white line, I think you're kind of allowed to.
Well, but you know,
But
I think it's a combination of telling people what we don't want them to do and also telling them what we do want to do. And that's what the parking stalls do. They say, park here. If it's just a white line, you're like,
Yeah.
how do I feel today? Am I aggressive?
Do I like my mirror? Do I not like my mirror?
We may have,
The stall actually makes the oncoming traffic, the traffic that's coming in, and someone's gonna open their door, realize that those are actually designated parking spots.
I think, you know, this is part of the conversations that I've had with Chris Cole a few times is like these universal design standards are not just a good idea. It's they give everybody a cue about what's supposed to happen here and now.
You know what to expect.
Parking, yeah.
Okay, you do.
That's just a thought and a question I had, and I know they didn't do their final page yet, so I thought I'd ask now before they actually did.
Yeah, my sense is we're not gonna change their final pave at this point.
Well, we could at least ask, like, hey, so are you going to sign and mark designating parking spaces on Route 2?
They're going to.
Not sign, you don't need signs.
They won't even fix my driveway. They messed up and said they would
I'm
fix. So.
pretty sure that parking stalls are not part of the final design. And I don't think we're gonna
Raise like
get
2
that
feet and then they
right
just
now.
drop off. I can't even drive my trailer.
Which battle would you like me to fight right now? Like,
Wait, why not? We can-
I mean, it is
Just
just.
to get a sword and a suit of armor.
Does anybody want to meet with me at the traffic signal intersection and talk about the traffic signal
I
specifically?
can meet with you.
I can.
What day, Josh?
You know, okay, you, Adam, you're in?
Okay. Are you doing
What's
it?
that?
When are you doing it?
I'm not sure. It depends on who wants to join, what time they have, what time Derek from V-Trans
There would beer
has.
there.
There will be tacos.
Okay, you turn that around on me.
Bonuses
I can,
too.
if we want to do it in the morning, it would make sense to do it in the morning when
Makes
there's
sense to
traffic.
me to
right?
do it in the morning too.
Yeah,
I think
I can do
Derek,
that pretty much any day.
okay, I'll put that down. I'll confirm with Adam or with Derek from V-Trans and
I'll do it
figure
at
out
any time besides morning.
anytime aside.
If you need two of them,
Okay.
something like that, yeah. Just let me.
In the morning, I would like to do it at 7:30 as well. Just look at the-
I think the morning,
Morning
yeah.
person.
It makes sense. 7:30 in the school
Be
morning.
there.
Yeah.
You know.
And I-
We're 6 in the morning, so I'm not really
No
there.
green light. There's
No green arrow.
Yeah, I mean, and when I looked at that with Duncan, when they first put it in, it was like, sometimes it came on, sometimes it didn't. I wasn't understanding exactly, like, I know there's a camera up
And it
there.
comes out well done, and she does.
You haven't seen it lately at all? Okay, well then maybe
I
the,
used to see it a bunch and then it is.
when it first came on, I know it was on.
That's awesome.
Well, I never noticed. I noticed from the other side because it has the no turn
Yeah,
thing, and I've been coming down Jericho Road all the time now.
okay, maybe it hasn't been
I don't
activated.
think it's on at all because that's why it was checked on the bars is because that green arrow hasn't been on at all to let this lane go completely.
Well,
Okay.
it's worth the site visit.
Is it worth the
Let's have a
site?
party.
Watch that on the table. And thanks to you guys.
All right. All right,
Okay, consideration of approval by the Richmond Fire Department to hold a coin drop on Saturday, October 12th, 2024 to buy a new fire truck.
David, I'd like to move to approve the request of the Richmond Fire Department to hold a coin drop at the traffic signal at the intersection of Bridge Street and Route 2 on Saturday, October 12th, 2024 from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Lisa, I'll second.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you, Lisa. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the motion to a vote.
We'll take anything you throw in the bucket.
Really? Yeah, I can't get, I've got loonies and toonies.
Say aye. Bart, aye.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
David, I have your coin drop. Okay. See how we can do. Time. Review of draft warning for special town meeting.
I can kind of run you through the changes and tell you what, I think we're gonna need another meeting to finalize this anyway. So the person that Citrus Page and Fletcher was helping me kind of draft the entire thing, got appointed to a judgeship in environmental court. So he's left Citrus Page and Fletcher. So congratulations to Joe. But that meant that this and a few other projects sort of had to find new attorneys to review them. So I don't have a feedback yet from Citrus Page and Fletcher on some of the changes. I'll bug John tomorrow to see if he can get that to us here this week. And we'll get them hopefully by next week. I did make the changes. Oh, actually, first I should say that we reached out to Belinda and town moderator Clint Buxton about when could they actually do this meeting, because we need them to do the meeting, because it's not technically a meeting of the select board, it's a meeting of the people, and we need the clerk and the moderator to run it. Clint's generally available from October 28th through November 13th, with a preference for a Saturday morning, which narrows the date down to November 2 or 9. We could also go midweek, anytime in there, and do a midweek evening. But I think we've talked about the last time we did this, a Saturday morning worked fairly well. I think it was in the spring after.
Yes,
coming
it's like
years
April
ago.
or-
Yeah. So we've got a little time to think about the date, but probably that early November timeframe would work well.
I
Changes.
will not be able to be here if it's on November 2nd. I will be not even
Okay.
able to be remote. I will be unavailable.
And there's probably not gonna be a remote option. That's a good point to bring up.
Right.
Because it's a special town meeting and
So-
voting's from the floor. you have to be present to
Right.
participate.
But I could do the 9th.
So the first two I only changed slightly. Kara asked, could we add paper ballot after Australian ballot? So I threw that in there to see what the attorney would think about it. I got feedback from Linda today that she didn't like that wording because paper ballot in her mind brings up the paper ballot from the floor. You go to paper ballot.
Yeah.
And she thinks it could be confusing if you put that on here, like, what are we doing? Australian ballot is, I mean, there's a definition of it. I get Kara's point, though. Not everybody knows what Australian ballot means. So is there a better way to be more descriptive? I don't know, but I'll try to find out. And then these other ones, I added a short amount here. So I went back to VLCT about, why should we not use ARPA? And they basically said that it's a specific guidance from the federal agency that you cannot transfer ARPA money directly into a reserve account. And the concern from VLCT is if you put this on here to say we're going to use the budget surplus to do all the same things as ARPA, then it could send a red flag to the feds that, oh, wait, did you really transfer that for offset, or are you just creating ARPA? So she came back and said, she had some wording about what was it? If Article 3 is approved, shall the voters of Richmond authorize the select board to deposit up to $993,000 from the general fund unassigned funds, which was created because of a one-time unanticipated revenue to the special project reserve fund. So she suggested adding that to kind of signal that, like, this is a one-time revenue. I think we still have a lot of explaining to do to the public. We're going to be
in person at the meeting.
I was going to
say this is ARPA money. We've been advised to not say it's ARPA money because they might take it back.
I think that's what I would advise.
Yeah, really.
And I think that, I also sent the special projects reserve outline to John to say, could we also use this as sort of a supplement? Because I tried to put as many of the uses in Article 3 that we would use it for. But could there be a separate document that talks about if this is created, this is the controlling document for it, which I think would be helpful, because then that ties directly back to the uses that the town had decided for and were given for ARPA. So right now, probably not a lot to do for the board other than we'll talk about this in the next meeting, maybe start thinking about the date we want to hold this, because next meeting, we probably have to finalize and set a date pretty close to it, because we're going to get right up on the end of October. We need 30 days notice. It's coming fast.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah. I think she has a question about this.
Connie, you done?
You have a question about this article?
No.
Oh, okay.
But Connie, would like some action from the board before the auditors come.
Can we do that under next agenda?
I don't know. They're going to be here in a week and a half, she says.
Well, so you're talking about
There's 3 policies.
Yeah, I talked to her about that this morning because I didn't have a chance to
2 of them are done. I don't know if everybody's looked at it, but we could approve tonight. I think they're good.
We did more.
We can't. Well, I mean, I think in theory we could. So, I know she was still waiting. I think you gave her some feedback. She was waiting for something from you on these policies, and I suggested, and I honestly haven't read through them in a great amount of detail other than about a year ago when we first looked at them. I suggested maybe you two, myself and Connie, meet within the next week to say, okay, are we all on the same page? And then bring it back. I think you're heading out of town later this week, tomorrow. So maybe we try to set up a time for next week if you're back, or we could do something via Zoom.
I can Zoom.
And then the 4 of us can just be good and we put it on the next agenda. And I think it's not a hard and fast, like we're going to get in trouble by the auditors. I think it's something that they suggested that we should show some movement on, though.
I think the thing that makes Connie happiest in her job, which, keeps her here, is having an easy time with the auditors. And she's saying that this would help her.
Yeah.
I got to believe her.
Yeah. No,
it's not money, it's more to Connie.
Yeah.
Money handles every day. Tired of money.
Okay.
You handle money all the time.
Okay.
So.
All right.
And it's 9:55. It's time for approval of minutes, warrants, and purchase orders.
Yay.
We only have 17 purchase orders this time, right?
Oh, God. Yeah, we got a few. I did give you all, well, you want to do minutes first?
Yeah, I'll start with a motion to approve the minutes of the
Just a second.
August 19th meeting.
Whoa.
So moved.
No, wait.
Second.
Oh, did you have edit?
There's a couple of things in the minutes. Bard, you were there and you weren't there at the same time.
That's me.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, lines 5 and 7 on the select board minutes. Bard either was there or wasn't there, but he wasn't, so we shouldn't call him there.
It's kind of a quantum
Oh.
thing. If you haven't opened the box, he would still be in superposition.
Is he actually in there? Yeah. And also, line 335,
Razor.
the August 19th minutes, the total amount should be 76,700.
Sorry, what line are you on?
Line 335.
335. Okay, let me get back. I just want to follow along with you so I can make the changes. Line 335, recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't add up right. I mean, there's a $700 missing, or the number that's here. It says 76,000, should be
Okay.
76,700.
Yeah, I can get those numbers easily enough.
I just want to
Missing
prove it.
$7,000, missing $700, you said?
Yeah, the numbers are there, but didn't add up.
Funding assistance, 8,700. No, did you, there's 8,700 for funding assistance. Let me see.
Yeah, right.
I think,
It came across as 8,000.
no, line 334 is 8,700 for funding assistance.
Line 335 with the total is missing that 700.
Oh,
Yeah.
7,600. Yes, I see what you're saying now. Sorry.
That's all right. No, you're human? What?
Should be 76,700. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, just definitely.
Yep, nope, gotcha now.
Okay.
Any other corrections?
Nope.
I'm sorry, who seconded this?
I will if it didn't. So, there you go.
Lisa, you seconded?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go with that.
So this is a motion to approve the minutes of 8:19 as amended. Motion made by Jay, seconded by Lisa. Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Art abstain.
J.I.
David, I. Okay. But do purchase orders next?
Yeah, do you want me to call each one up or do you just want to go by the motions?
We can go by the motions.
Okay.
Who wants to rattle them off? Mr. Chairman, I move to amend purchase order 4935 to Dirt Tech for emergency road repairs to 287,448.74.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Is
Adam?
Bart on second?
Thank you, Bard. Motion made by Jay, seconded by Bard. So Josh, why are we amending this?
So this is one that we put in for emergency road repairs. So the initial price or initial number on there was sort of an estimate or best guess based on what we thought the work was going to be. But we went over that because of the scope of damages. We didn't really get a estimate from them in advance. So that's why all these ones that are being amended all relate back to, we sort of took a guess at how much it was going to be based on what we thought it was, and they've run over,
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further comments
unfortunately.
or questions? Okay. Calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Bart, aye.
J.I.
David, I.
And what's the next one? 4937?
Yes.
I move we approve or move to amend purchase order 4937 to FW Web for culverts for emergency to $69,142.20.
Thank you, Lisa.
Adam, second.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Bart, aye.
J.I.
David, I.
Move to amend purchase order 4938 to McCullough Crushing for rock and gravel for emergency repairs to $37,740.02.
Lisa, I'll second.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Lisa. Any questions? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, aye.
Bart, aye.
J.I.
David, I.
I move to amend purchase order number 4941 to Richard Coles LLC for rock and emergency repairs for $161,955.
I'll second. Lisa.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Lisa. Any questions?
The previous one on here, did I just miss it? Oh, there's two.
4938.
You looking?
Yep, good.
Okay, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Bart, I. Jay, I.
David, I.
Mr. Chairman, I move to amend purchase order 4946 to Craig Cowles Excavating for emergency road repairs, $204,890.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second?
Adam, second.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Bart, I. Jay, I.
David, I.
Move to approve purchase order number 5028 to Rick's Towing and Repair for repair to the brush truck for a total of $15,619.09.
Thank you, Adam.
Lisa, I'll second.
Thank you, Lisa. So is this the total repairs to the brush truck?
No.
Unfortunately,
Chassis.
That's the one that fell through.
so yeah, this is all the underbody stuff. So it came back from Rick's, and maybe Adam knows more, but they said that there was no problems with the fit of the box on the back of the truck, so that we don't have to do anything there. But Toyne came out and looked at it. There's some cosmetic damage, so they're gonna repair that. Send us a bill for that damage. We're submitting all of this to VLCT as an insurance claim.
What's our deductible?
Don't know.
Okay.
15,690.
And 9 cents. Yeah, sure.
So this is just the chassis damage, the axle.
Just the axle,
Okay.
yeah. I
Do
think
you
it was
have a
mostly
rough
just an
idea of
axle.
what the box damage will be?
I don't have an estimate from Dennis now. Do you know? I haven't heard anything.
I
from
haven't
Dennis.
heard, no.
Borman told me she thought it cost 40,000, but
Who did?
I
40,000?
yeah, she
For
showed
the
me
cosmetic damage or for the whole?
the whole
cab?
thing.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the
That seems
mechanical,
reasonable.
mechanical.
Well, yeah, let's hope that,
I think the whole box alone, like to buy the doors and re-sticker them would only be like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
If they had to buy and re-sticker everything. So I don't think
She was a wild ass, yes.
it's not going to be as bad as I think everyone imagined initially. Everyone thought it could be like $100,000 mess up.
Oh, I can't.
So
if everything was like off alignment,
Yeah,
yeah, it would have been
exactly.
terrible.
I was worried that it had bent the frame like crazy and stuff.
Right.
Okay, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Bart, I. Jay, I.
David, I. And that will be.
There's one more.
Insurance
Oh, yeah. Already is.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve purchase order 5056 to mow and maintain for volunteers, volunteers green flood cleanup, total $36,050.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have a second?
Adam, second. Did we not approve this? Is this separate from last time or last time we just choose to go with them? We didn't approve a PO.
So yeah, a couple things. So last time you chose to go forward with them for the repairs in the park for $26,500. The reason why it's $9,550 more is that as we got in there, we found out that there were a lot more trees to be removed than we initially thought. When we first did the inspection, we saw what was on the ground, and we saw one that was sort of leaning. As they started to go and do the work, they're like, well, there's actually this one that cracked all the way up the trunk that we didn't notice before. And then there was a few more. So if you go down the end of the soccer field, on the right-hand side, sort of between the soccer field and where the park road is, there was one tree that was leaning at a 45-degree angle, which we knew we had to get out of there. And that was in the original quote because we didn't want it to fall anybody. As they got in there, there were several other trees that had they fallen, they had potential to fall into where people were standing and watching and playing soccer. If they were back in the woods, we probably wouldn't have cared about them, but they were close enough to the park edge where we said, you're here, just do it.
Did we specify where the trees had to go when they were removed?
No, I'm not even sure where they took them. They bumped them and took them out. You know where they went?
Yeah.
Where did they take them?
Back in the woods.
Well, I knew they were putting some stuff back there that they had. I didn't know exactly where they were putting all the debris from the trees.
That's part of the floodway mitigation strategy.
No, they'll float. They'll go after the bridge.
Yeah.
Send them down to the river and field it downstream.
Next bridge downstream.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I was a little surprised to see that.
Maybe that's where the last tree came from, hit the bridge.
Okay, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Bart, I. Jay, I.
David, I. Next are the warrants.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the warrants as presented.
Is Bart, I'll second that.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Bart. Any questions on the warrants? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Bart, I. Jay, I.
David, I. Items for next agenda. I think we might talk about Southview, Hidden Pines,
You
Park
think?
Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Stormwater.
Josh, just out of curiosity, like where are we kind of at with the flood stuff? What's our total?
Went
So,
up.
so
It's not going down yet.
it just went up.
All the purchase order.
Oh, well, that was included. No, Pete's still at about 1.5 million, which is where we were for his projection from the last meeting.
Cool.
We did actually get our first payment from 2023. So
Why so fast?
I don't have the numbers broken down in my head, but
That was like 500,000, right?
well, we were looking at like, well, we're not done with 2023.
Right.
They had an obligation that I think we were looking for like $230,000 to come back to the town. We got a portion of that. We got the $135-ish thousand for Old Jericho Road, which is that class 4 road there.
Yep.
And there was, I think, $30,000 for water and sewer that we just got for the repair of the hangars under the bridge.
So it helps the cash flow a little bit.
Helps the cash flow for sure. And that was part of the discussion at last week was we're gonna get this money. And lo and behold, we actually got it within a timely manner.
Cool.
And there's more on the way. And then the freeze hits where we're not gonna get anything more, but we're gonna continue to move forward and submit projects. And we will start to submit projects for the most recent flood now as well. Yeah.
Oh, because we had two now
Mhm.
this year.
Yeah, now we have the 2024 ones that just got approved or just declared, so we'll,
Was that declaration, that was just for the 11th, right? July 11th flood?
yeah, that was for this
wasn't-
one about 6
Wasn't for
weeks
the
ago.
stuff that happened a couple weeks after that,
The
or,
windstorm,
yeah,
no, that did not get declared. No, there was,
likely won't be probably.
it's not gonna be, no. There was a brief moment where everybody in the state, well, some people, myself included, thought, my God, they declared it within a day. But what that was for was, so if anybody saw that notice, it was so that the state could reach out to like swiftwater rescue teams and say, we're having a disaster, come up and help us. So it wasn't a funding declaration.
I lost trees I didn't even know I had.
Well, that'll happen.
And now you don't
You
have.
didn't know you have me, you don't have me.
That was a pretty wild storm.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, pretty much.
Especially when this tree went this way and this tree went that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Wait, did you guys do warrants? Oh, you did? Yeah, you're on
Yep.
the agenda.
We're on.
We'll have plenty of agenda. Yeah, we'll have plenty more coming up.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Well, it made and seconded.
Mm.
Were you identify yourself with the fire?
Again, Jay, I.
Okay.
Adam, I.
Lisa, I.
Bart, I.
We are adjourned, 10:50. That's it.